Welcome to Myth Informed, everyone, with your hosts, Brian and Dimitri. Today we have with us the eloquent Vadim Newquist, a comedian, political pop culture commentator, and humble servant to YouTube's Creationist cat. He is an upright Citizens Brigade veteran and former member of the award-winning sketch group Mr. Ass, featuring Jon Daly and Brett Gelman. He considers himself an atheist, although the existence, of a talking evangelical cat that claims to have been zapped by God through the internet has provoked him to challenge his beliefs.
There you go.
It's not mine.
That was a stellar intro, guys. I really appreciate you pronouncing my last name in the Swedish style, Vadim. Most of the time it's Newquist. But if you pronounce it like Swedish, the way the Swedes do, it would be Nykvist. I'm not even really Swedish. It's a long story. My mom married a man who is not my biological father. But
but before you, I want to do a big shout out to the Liberalist International Association. They're a not-for-profit advocacy group consisting of members from all across the globe. Their goal is to educate and advocate for the 7 seminal liberal principles. They seek to rekindle the flame of liberalism, to explain their principles to those unfamiliar, and to defend them from all who seek to undermine them. And they are fantastic sponsors of Mythcon, which is coming up on September 22nd. So thank you to the Liberalist International Association. Cheers.
Thank you, liberalists.
Yes.
And the Sargonites.
Yes, back to your name. You totally, I thought you were culturally appropriating because Vadim is an absolute Russian name. And I got so excited. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to have another Russian at the conference. And then I found out you're sort of a Scandinavian.
Well, but the thing is, it's just, I'm sort of a real odd. When it comes to my name, I confuse the hell out of people because my first name is Russian and I really have no Russian blood. My mom just happened to like the name. She actually she has told me, because she knew, I don't know if you're familiar with Roger Vadim, the French director who is married to Jane Fonda, Catherine Deneuve, Brigitte Bardot, and someone else who was that I can't remember, who is ridiculously beautiful. And she met him, and she always really liked his name, but she thought he was a prick. So I'm named after an asshole, apparently. Anyhow, just I want to say a couple things right off the bat. First of all, you'll have to excuse me. I'm a little hoarse today. I was up until like 5 o'clock in the morning. No lie, beating a huge teddy bear with a pink wiffle ball bat, screaming my lungs out for a Creationist cat video. I'm just if I sound a little kind of under the weather, that's why. How are you guys doing, by the way?
Really good. We're just busy preparing for Myth, working, that kind of thing. So we're getting fired up. There's a lot to do still, and cool people to talk to, like you.
Cool.
Computer.
So, what?
I had shit computer problems, which I complained about before we started, but now I'm better because we're live and we're shooting the shit with you, man. So this is awesome.
Sweet. Well, I think we talked about this. Like, there's I want to have a chill convo and everything, but there's a few things that I wanted to ask and kind of bring up in the beginning. Hopefully we can get through them like quick, because just like to have just a normal chat. But I feel like I need to bring up a couple things. One thing that a friend wanted me to ask, and a couple of other stuff. And I feel like I just need to bring these things up just to kind of just kind of stay true to myself, and also because I'm curious about a couple things.
You can be as frank as possible.
All right. Okay, cool. I wanted to ask you guys, first of all, you know, in the past, I know that the event has been sort of billed. I believe that you guys, in a portion of your website, you said that something like the stated goals, or I forget the terminology, but it was something like that, were among them were to promote both skepticism and secular humanism. Do you guys feel like the event still kind of fulfills that, still does that?
Well, the main mission statement is to provide viewpoint diversity as a hedge to authoritarianism, right? If you do not have viewpoint diversity, you have authoritarianism. And take the Soviet Union, right, where there was one way to think. You were either with the party line or you weren't, right? So, I mean, I think we all can agree that that's authoritarianism. But
well, yes and no. I mean, there's, but you'll have to excuse me because some of that sort of broke up a little bit, and I didn't get all of what you had to say. Do I get the gist of what you're saying? Is that could you just re-explain, because just in the beginning,
promoting viewpoint
go ahead.
Of authoritarianism.
And I wanted to also fill in, because your specific question was, well, you know, our goals were around secularism and humanism, and have we strayed away? And I think I kind of reading that is a question we've been asked previously. So our humble roots are definitely baked in atheism, secularism, and we still, to an extent, pay homage to that. At least, with the first three conferences, for sure, they were all atheist conferences. Last year, we had bits and pieces that got into sociopolitics. And then this year, we are very heavily into sociopolitics. It's kind of been a pivot. Yet we do have, I think, two panels focused on atheism,
well,
right?
these things are going to touch on atheism. I mean, the mission statement of promoting viewpoint diversity to combat or put limits on authoritarianism or as a hedge, that applies to religion, right? I mean, you could have where you have a state religion, absolutely enforced state. But I mean, Saudi Arabia is a great example of this, right?
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess I just I feel like both my opinion is that in both of those ways, I mean, this event doesn't have to promote those things. You know, this is your event, so you guys can do what you want with it. But I really do feel like, by virtue of the majority of the guests that you have, the people that you are celebrating, that neither skepticism nor secular humanism is really promoted at all by this event. I just have to be frank and just really say that, because I feel like, you know, there's a lot of people who are being honored, not just people who are you know, going to be on the stage, who for instance just perpetuate fake news memes. Like they will, when I say fake news memes, I mean like they will back the president when he like says, oh, that's fake news. And there's just a whole range of you know, you have someone like what's his name? Sorry, you added him recently. He's a young Republican with like sort of poofy hair. What's his name? Well. Anyhow, I know that he's a climate change skeptic, and that there are plenty of people in the, you know, the roster who I believe that they do not fit the term skeptic. And when it comes to humanism, you have a lot of people who have just treated people just awfully. So I don't know. I had to throw it out there that I feel like if you guys are still striving for that, that this event kind of falls short of that.
Okay. Now, a couple things. One, I'm not really sure what secular humanism means. We can kind of get into that. But when you're talking about like fake news and memes, I mean, okay, well, I'm going to put one back at you. You posted something on August 29th, and it's a picture of Candace Owens on Turning Point. You have a quote: an illegal immigrant murdered in this the beautiful Molly Tibbetts. We need a wall now more than ever. And if the Tibbetts family objects, I say we use their skulls as bricks. And
sure.
now,
I posted that. I mean, that's a decent point. I posted that pretty much thinking that people were going to know that that was a that was a fake. There are all these fake Charlie Kirk memes out there and stuff like that. So that's a fair point. If you want to say like I'm kind of perpetuating some bullshit with that, but I would never, like if anyone, people did ask, hey, is this real? And I was like, no, it's not. So I'm not actually like trying to kind of, I don't know, the objective of that meme was not to convince people that she had actually said that.
Yeah, I know, but it's in quotes. The whole point isn't to go tit for tat. It's more so it's like pot calling the kettle black, because it's not that we invited all these people. We invited Creationist Cat. He's throwing a lot of shit out there. You got all these bad apples in one. That's not the whole point. Is the political landscape is very nuanced, and there's a lot of people who are who are posting memes that may not be true, but they look true. There may be people on the other side that are, but it's very rare that these folks can be in one place co-located to talk about their differences. And that's the entire point, is when we say secularism, atheism, that those are roots in, and I truly mean in the disbelief of God. When we talk about, you talk about humanism as in like be good to each other, absolutely, we hope that the people that are going to be there, and frankly just like last year, are going to be nice to each other. It's going to be awesome. But yes, have people done shitty things online? Oh, on all sides, that happens.
yeah, but I guess I don't even, it's just a follow-up and all you talk, Vadim. I don't even think that that's necessarily shitty. Right away when I saw it, I mean, I back-checked it, right? And I knew that wouldn't be something that she said. It didn't make sense. The Ben Shapiro one was even more obvious. Yeah. I knew that it was fake, right? But it did have the turning point. It did have the quotes, right? I knew that it's probably a joke, right? But now some people on the right might get offended. But I think it's your right to kind of mock and tell jokes. But then Sargon and everybody else, and I think
I feel like you're making a real false equivalency here, because I mean you're taking like a random thing, which like I'm a comedian, I make jokes, and I have not like tried to make some sort of real argument based on that fake quote. Whereas the people that I'm talking about will perpetuate actual falsities, and they'll actually like dispute facts, like real things that are
pushing a false factor.
And that's not to say, I'm not saying that the left from time to time, certainly they can get it wrong as well, but just some of the people that you have, I mean, you know what, I feel like I've already just voiced that. I mean, I don't necessarily need to get into that, because I think most of the people who are watching this, who are on the same page as me, kind of know exactly like what it is that I'm talking about. So I wanted to throw it out there that I feel like, see this is because the reason why it matters to me to mention this is that I just feel, especially now more than ever, when we have this sort of fake news, alternative facts world, we have Donald Trump as our president. It's never been more difficult for people to discern fact from fiction.
I agree. We agree there.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we also, and this is probably stuff that I'm going to be getting into on stage with some of the people, the discussion that I'll be having. But, I feel that the whole atheism / skepticism movement was born out of a real need to address an encroachment of religion and kind of just other elements of bullshit on American life. And, there was a significant threat at that time. And now we're at this point where I actually believe with the Trump presidency and several other things that are going on relating to it, that we need that more than we needed it even then. And unfortunately, a lot of people who go under the term skeptic, they just don't. I mean, maybe you can call me an elitist, but in my opinion, they don't fit the bill of being a skeptic.
Yeah, wouldn't blind spots though? Because to me, you say it's needed more in the Trump presidency. So you're looking over at the Trump presidency, all of the stuff that's going on there, a lot of the post-truth stuff that you see coming out of there. Wow, that's worrisome. Let's get skeptical about it. But then another part of the atheist community, and again, it's not just the atheists. This includes a whole bunch of people that are on the downs, the libertarian side, not the authoritarian side. Look over to the left, and they see what's going on in critical theory, and you see stuff like meritocracy is white supremacy, right? And it's being pumped out and given legitimacy by universities, and they say, "Oh my God, our founding institutions are being co-opted by ideology." That's where we should focus.
Well, there's two things that I would say to that. One is that I think that the amount of that is actually going on is very much exaggerated. And two, also, even though that I don't always think that kind of how can I say it? Looking at things through that lens and talking in that way is very helpful. I do think that there is an element to their arguments that is strawmanned, and that is that there are elements of their arguments that have some truth to them, and people kind of they often either they don't understand it, or they kind of take the arguments and twist them around to seem like they don't steel man the arguments. They like just kind of hear the aspect. It's sort of like the term rape culture. For a while I didn't really understand it because it was just I hadn't really investigated it, and it seemed sort of like absurd to me. But I do believe now. Like, I think that there are a lot of people who will use that term, throw it around flagrantly, and I don't like that. But I do think that there is such a thing as rape culture, and I don't know. I'm just kind of using an example right here to just kind of like point out that I feel like these things aren't always spoken about in like people either don't understand them, or they kind of straw man kind of what they are. Like, a lot of people will, when they talk about rape culture, will talk about it as though most people insist who talk about it that like all of America is a rape culture, and that like Sports Illustrated swimsuit issues are rape culture. Now there's crazy people that are like that, but again, what?
That's been put forth. That's a legitimate argument.
And the real question is then, there's a lot of moral grandstanding that's happening.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with you in that, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of strawmanning, but it's happening everywhere. I mean, that's really the big reason why we're trying to hold Mythcon, is to get people to hold other people's feet to the fire, on stage, where they can't retreat to the internet. But I would say that it happens everywhere, and this tribalist element is the worrisome one. I mean, the whole vibe that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but your whole vibe is, those guys, nameless right-wing people, they got it all wrong.
Well, I can name names. It's just I
know. I'm not
naming. I don't necessarily want to kind of like point too many people out who are involved with the actual thing, because I'm going to be hanging out with them and stuff. I mean, there are.
No, critique the idea, not the name.
Yeah, and you don't have to point to any people. I'm just saying, you were talking about Trump America. These people are promoting falsehoods. Who it doesn't matter who they are. It's coming from a position of, I know facts, I know what's right, I have the ultimate truth. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what it sounds like. And the other people may be saying, no, he's dead wrong, I have the facts. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, though, is that there is actually, I mean, again, part of this is like I hesitate to get into certain things because there are certain points that I'd like to make for the first time when I'm on stage. You know?
Good. That's great. Don't get rid of any of your trump cards.
Yeah. I mean,
no pun intended.
I would like to hold on to some of the major points that I'm going to make, or hopefully have the chance to make when I'm on the stage. But how can I? I guess I just there are like I think you guys will agree that like flat earthers and climate, maybe you won't agree about this, but that climate change deniers, people who think that the moon landing was faked. I mean, and I'm not saying that you have either flat earthers or moon landing hoaxers at this event. I sure hope not. But
we know
what I'm saying is that like these are things that we can like just agree on are facts, right?
Sure.
And and a lot of the things that I'm talking about when I say facts are as discernible as those things, like climate change or
there's not a lot of them. I mean, I think you pointed to like 3 effectively that are it. And even with climate change, you'll find most conservatives now have pivoted and they've said, okay, we don't disagree that it's happening. We don't know the extent of it.
We want to know how serious it is.
And then they'll say, yeah, but what's the solution? Like, go back to living like in the 1800s, or you know what I mean? Like, there's
but these people are mostly very unwilling to listen to what the experts, the people who are most qualified to give advice on what we should do. They will not like those.
If you consider Bill Nye an authority, and maybe not, whatever, but Bill has never come out and said, you know what, we should do X, Y, and Z. We should do all these 3 things.
Well, Bill Nye is someone who like interprets information, like he's more of a scientific speaker rather than someone who is like, he's not a climatologist, he's not a lot of things. He interprets the data and kind of is a spokesperson for those things. I'm not talking about like your Bill Nyes. I'm talking about mostly people whose names we don't know because they're not very well known, but yet they are like qualified. They're climatologists who have been studying these things and look at meta-analyses and stuff like that, and then recommend what to do based on that.
Yeah, and they're probably, but they're not economists though, right? That does need to be balanced with whatever that plan is going to be, like what effect that might have in the economy. That ought to be considered. And those 2 things have to be balanced. And I think that's how you get the Republicans to move.
The other thing is, how do we know that they're not being listened to? I mean, sure, there's like Trump's cabinet is doing shitty things like removing mentions of climate change from whatever website.
Agree.
I mean, yeah, that's ridiculous, but we have no idea who are the experts behind the scenes that are actually advising him. I mean, he's got plenty of liberals that, when he first got elected, that came to him, and I think he had DiCaprio hanging out at Trump Tower, like talking about climate change.
Right. I know
what you're gonna say.
I don't understand why that matters. I mean, the guy is a pathological liar and also a fame whore. So,
exactly. So if Leo is going to his house to talk about climate change, you think that's not going to be impactful so that he can be best buds with Leo and take selfies? I mean, he's that kind of guy that he would be drawn to that.
Well, we know that so far he's repealed tons of really just vital regulations, like the clean, I think it's called the Environmental Protection Plan, or maybe there's a different name for it. But basically, it will boost emissions by 12 times for the next 10 years that we would have had. I mean, it's one of many Obama era regulations that he's just gotten rid of. And he went out of the Geneva Climate Accord, but there's more things than just that issue, which is a big one. But there's also the way is absolutely pandering to evangelicals more than really almost any other president that we've had. And it's like, you know, in the George Bush era, people were calling that out. And I would, you know, everyone is obviously under no obligation to kind of, you know, they do what they, you know, what they're about and what makes them money. But I do wish that there were more people who call themselves skeptics who were out there these days who were kind of, you know, calling these things out. And then on top of that, you know, we also have a lot of people who at one time were like people like Michael Shermer, who's someone who I've really respected in the past, who has, you know, like embraced people like Stephen Molyneux, who is a cult leader and a climate change denier as well. And he calls him one of our most important skeptics. And so I just feel like in general, like the skepticism world has really gone downhill. I don't know. Are you guys still there? Because you're frozen. Hello? Hello? I don't know what's going on.
My pencil.
Hello?
We're gonna have to edit that out. No, that was fun.
That was weird. What just happened? You guys are still frozen. Oh, now you're unfrozen.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my point was this. I see on the but now I know exactly where we're. Okay, you've got the, you know, the political compass, right? You have authoritarians on the up, you know, and then you have left and right. I believe that both of us are somewhere on the down spectrum on, you know, more libertarian. And I think that and this is me personally, and I'm speaking for MM, is you're being a lot more skeptical of things on the right. I'm being more skeptical of things on the left. And I think my blind spot will be more to the right. Your blind spot will be to the left. So,
I try to apply skepticism equally. I mean, believe like there are certain things like for instance, the wage gap. You know, the wage gap actually does exist, but it exists at a much smaller rate than most people will, you know, who talk about it or who criticize it will say, you know, and so, but yet at the same time, I'm fully willing to admit that there are lots of people who either, you know, misrepresent it. Sometimes maybe unintentionally, sometimes maybe intentionally. I don't know. But, you know, that's an example of something that I'll call out. And, you know, another thing is GMO, like GMO skepticism, or, you know, people who think that GMOs are poisonous. They're not. And that actually happens to be something that's prevalent on the left. I mean, there are a good deal of right-wing people who also believe that. But that drives me crazy, and I will totally call shit like that out as well.
Yeah, but likewise with us, I mean, we'll call out anyone who challenges separation of church and state, or
we've gone at it with climate change
or overt climate denial. I mean, all of these things, you know, like I said, we've got
or the absurd
we got some things in our basket that are from your basket, and vice versa. And frankly, I think we're somewhere, you know, close to.
Yeah, we're not that far apart.
Yeah, we're not.
I guess, you know,
again, you're saying with like the Trump administration, right? And you're like you've got a kind of list of it, right? But what I guess what outrages me more is what's happening to the universities. I mean, Trump's going to be gone eventually, but the universities are continuing to get worse and applying absolutely no skepticism whatsoever in the humanities. I mean, there's an orthodoxy within critical theory. There is no diversity in critical theory.
I'm really, you know, one thing that I think is really amazing about the whole discussion of universities and whatnot, is that no one ever seems to talk about what's going on in right-wing universities, in like Christian campuses and stuff like that, and the amount of I mean, in terms of like, because usually people talk about like,
Yeah.
Give us an example.
I can't even name two.
well, there are hundreds of Christian and all, not just Christian, but also Mormon colleges that have, I'm trying to remember what it is. It's title something exemption, and it allows them to kick students out for being gay, for having sex, for a whole number of things. And
that happens at BYU. That's true. Too.
What's that?
Notre Dame has you can be expelled for having sex before marriage.
Yeah. And you know, these are colleges, because some people will say like, well, you know, these are private colleges, but they get Pell Grants, they get tax dollars, and it's sort of like they should be held up to the same standards. And you know, that element of things is not even in discussion. You know, there's a great deal of ways that these colleges are really kind of far more than I think your standard lefty university are, like trampling on people's, not just their free speech, but just their freedom of expression, their freedom to be who they are. And this is like not part of the conversation in the slightest. Like 90% of, or I think more of, the people who commonly talk about how horrible you know, colleges are, like I don't even think they're aware of this stuff.
You know, because it's new, Vadim. It's new. Like Notre Dame has always had that policy. BYU has always had that policy. Wheaton and Liberty, nothing's changed there. But what has changed, and very recently, as at the secular universities, the public universities have gone orthodox. And there's certain things that you cannot do on campus. That's what's attracting the attention.
Well, they actually, I have to correct you. You know, what I was talking about before, I wish I could remember the name of it, the title something exemption that they get. That is a relatively new thing that really, like, legally protects them from, I mean, allows them to discriminate, basically.
But Notre Dame's been doing it for eons. So is BYU. I mean, they were using something else before the new exemption, but they were doing it.
I think
so then they've been doing it, and they now have like a legal means to protect themselves. So in my mind, that's even worse. The fact that
there's a numbers game. How many universities are there? Okay, you said hundreds, even though I don't know if that's true. There are thousands of universities that are, I mean, universities are left-leaning bastions, which is not an issue as long as they allow diversity.
Well, campus. I'm sorry. Go on.
I'll look into the new title thing. I'm not sure, but I mean, but take Title IX, for example, that Obama put through, the Dear Colleague letter in 2011. Talk about legal backing for absolute injustice, right? I mean, you're not only, if you're accused of sexual assault, or not only are you not allowed to face your accuser, you can't even do it through a third party that asks that person questions. There's been other cases, a case at Stanford, where the top tennis star and the top whatever, I don't, footballer or something, their boyfriend, girlfriend, they're hooking up. The neighbor accuses the boyfriend of raping the girlfriend. Now the girlfriend says, I wasn't raped, right? It turns out that the neighbor is an ex-girlfriend or something, and it doesn't matter. And so a battered wife clause takes part, and now the victim testimony is inadmissible.
Okay.
Because she didn't file the complaint, because the complaint was something else, and Title IX supports this. This is you should read the Atlantic article. There's a 3-page Atlantic article that came out.
Send it to me, because this is actually a topic that I'm not really equipped to kind of rebut, because you know, I mean, I've read just in things about this, but I really don't know that much about it. So it's hard to kind of.
Right, but that's why I think Vadim, but that's why we make a good team, Vadim, because I don't know anything about this new title thing that affects the these religious universities, and you're going to be very good at applying skepticism there. I don't really know much about it. I'm very good at the Title IX abuses. See, this is where I think the left needs the right and the right needs the left. Like, Absolutely. It's not that you're bad or I'm good. It's that we have blind spots, and all of each other will fill each other's blind spots in if we all can listen.
Sure, sure. I want to ask you guys a question, but then after that question, because like I said, there were a couple things that I kind of wanted to get through quickly, sort of close to the top, and hopefully we can do that. But I was just, and then maybe we can resume this.
Vadim, you're muted. Or
he's frozen.
And or
conversation.
Frozen. No, wait, you might be back.
Hello, hello.
You're back. Yep, you're good.
Am I back?
Yep.
It's God.
I'm back. I apologize. As I told you earlier before we started, I have this microphone wire that a cat, not CC. CC is just knows better, but that chewed through that wire, and it kind of shorts out every now and then. Apologize.
A T-Rex cat. Okay.
No, I think it's the storms. We're experiencing the same thing. He's frozen again. So Vadim.
Hello.
Yeah, hey, yeah, it's the storms. We're experiencing the same thing on our end.
Hello. Are you there?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, cool. So what was the last thing that you heard me say? I don't know what.
You were talking about Cece and how amazing she is.
Oh, right.
But you were going to get to something else, yeah.
I was telling you about the microphone wire. Sorry, I think my vocal quality or the sound quality is going to go down now. But if I have this unplugged, then we'll probably have less of those shorts. So look, I wanted to say, like, okay, I'm not that well read up on Title IX, so I'll give you that one. Let's say that your interpretation of it is exactly what you say it is. In general, like, what sort of policies do you think are going to be coming out of a left-wing administration that are anywhere as troublesome as the policies?
Yeah, it's his connection
that we're going to be getting at the presidential nominees.
Okay.
Right.
No. We heard like 75% of that question.
I got the question. The question was like, why isn't more troubling? Okay, so he's conceded that point, and then he's saying, but don't you think the right is more troubling? Well, I guess one thing is, and Betsy DeVos gets so much shit, but that they're actually changing the standard of the Trump administration. It does seem upside down. I agree. Is actually fixing the Title IX problem, believe it or not.
No, he's asking what problematic
things?
Areas.
I'm asking what policies do you think the left would enact that are that kind of rival things like stepping out of the Paris Climate Accord? I mean, there's so many things to list. These dumbass tariffs that Trump has. I mean, I could go into like a very long list of things that.
I would say speech policies, right? I mean, that right now we're seeing microaggressions on campus, right? And that these things can get you, at least disciplined, if not expelled from a university, right? I mean, this would be a lead up. So why couldn't you have microaggressions at work? Why? I mean, you could have these everywhere. I mean, this would be an absolute.
So you are saying that you think that the left would implement laws that against microaggressions?
Yeah, they might. Right. Yeah, the colleges have. Why wouldn't HR departments? Why is it a stretch to think that some HR departments might do the same thing?
That sounds a little wacky to me. I mean, I think that this is part of. See, there's an element of the left that is definitely worthy of criticizing and whatnot. At the same time, there is an anti-SJW and that word is a word that I don't really take very seriously these days, SJW, because when most people say it, they usually mean whatever is to the left of them. But like there's a hysteria towards SJWs these days, and I don't really think that it's very fruitful. And I feel like a lot of people.
Canada. In Canada, they do have they do have these laws. There are hate speech laws, and in England there are too.
Oh, wait, are you talking about like C16?
Yeah, the provincial laws that they already have in force, right? And the reason why
it does not infringe on free speech.
What it does is it will criminalize Islamophobia, and Islamophobia is not defined, right? So if I say the Muslim Brotherhood is a bad group, is that hate speech? It might be, right? If I say I think the hijab is a bad idea, is that hate speech? It might be. And the people that want this are groups like ISNA they're basically front groups, or at least in some way attached to the Muslim Brotherhood. Trudeau and none of the parliamentary speakers in Canada that I know of have ever met with like Reza or Rahil Raz's group, or like Muslims for Progress in a lot of the Canadian progressive Muslim groups. They won't meet with them. They only meet with the Islamist groups. And then you get Bill C-16. You're gonna get it back.
But Bill C-16 is like, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Canadian Bar Association put out a like a statement about it, and they addressed Peter. I mean, they didn't name him specifically, but they basically addressed Jordan Peterson's concerns about it, about like kind of
I saw plenty of other lawyers that said no, Peterson's position was absolutely fine. How do we know that the head of
the Canadian Bar Association, they represent 36,000 lawyers?
All the lawyers signed off on this. Are we that, or did the top people do this? I mean, look at the Southern Poverty.
Where, I mean, like I just haven't seen. If you want to forward me an article written by someone who is a member of the Canadian Bar Association, who is like, I strongly disagree with this, I'll take a look at that. But I think that that's a pretty strong. I mean, yeah, I think that they know far better about like legal matters than someone like Jordan Peterson, who commonly talks out of his ass. I mean, like the guy, like he'll kind of
he cited a number of lawyers, and I back checked all of them, and so he had, I mean, again, I didn't do a count, but there were many credible lawyers that thought this. Again, lawyers disagree, right? They try to get lawyers to agree on what the impeachment process is and like what's an impeachable crime. You'll get 4 different answers from a whole group of lawyers.
Sure, but you also have like a small group of people who call themselves biologists who will dispute, like evolution and stuff like that. So I don't know. I actually have read 1 or 2 articles from lawyers who disagreed, but they just seem to have a very like just like an agenda with their their opinion. And someone like Jordan Peterson, I mean, he hawks his daughter's like all beef diet, and he makes claims like he didn't sleep for 25 days straight. He like, I just don't trust the guy to have any sort of handle on whether or not that the C-16 is genuinely like
I don't trust the Canadian I don't trust Canadian Parliament and Justin Trudeau, who meets with no Muslim reformist groups or modernized Muslims in Canada that are begging to meet with them, and only meets with Islamist groups.
And just to back up what Brian was saying, I mean, you see in the UK, like the situation that happened with Count Dankula, and the fact that he was nearly put in jail for a joke that was considered hate speech. So that's troubling. It could easily happen here. as long as we are weak on First Amendment protection.
Exactly.
And it's
well, there are so many ways that the right is weak on free speech issues, and those things don't come up. Like, for instance, in America, there are lots of bills that are constantly being floated that would have like huge ramifications on people's ability to protest. There are also what you would call it, the oh my God, I'm blanking on what it's called, but the the Ajit Pai net neutrality. I mean, that also has a lot of kind of ramifications on free speech potentially. And there are, I'm not like saying that the right is necessarily worse. I'm not trying to make this a competition of who's the most censorious, but it's in my opinion, it at least is just as bad on one side as the other, and constantly just being told about how the left is awful on these.
That was my point, though. That's why we have blind spots. We'll work better together, and that's what I see right now is just throwing stones. This person is, like Jordan Peterson said, he didn't sleep for 25 days. I'm going to discard everything he says.
No, I'm not saying that. Like he has some things to say about like Jungian psychology that are interesting, but I'm just saying that when it comes to stuff that he's not really well read on, I think he usually just doesn't know what he's talking about.
And I agree, but Bill C-16 he seemed to be an expert on.
Yeah, the other thing I want to come back to the original question, which was which policies would leftists enact that maybe work? And I mean, Brian gave his free speech thing. I applaud you, Brian. I agree. And I would say, for me, it would be the rise of the welfare state. I would not want to see ridiculous regulation from the federal level that's pushed down on the states, and just an egregious amount of handouts, because we've seen that this is disastrous policy, and that the countries that do have a culture of handouts are slowly rolling them back as they've seen this impacting their economies negatively. So that would be my one thing.
But I mean, your Scandinavian countries are doing very well economically, and I mean, I know that there are differences between those countries and ours, but still, like okay, that's but you answered the question. I'd like to move on to a couple of just the stuff that I kind of mentioned earlier. Maybe we can just kind of knock that stuff out, and then just can continue talking. So I told my friend Dusty Smith, who I think you guys know, I told him that like he asked me, because unfortunately recently he has lost a lot of his what do you call it, like social platform privileges. He's no longer on Twitter, he's no longer on Facebook, and he can't kind of communicate certain things that he'd like to as much. And I'm just going to read like what he wrote me. Like I'm not like necessarily taking a side here. I'm just like what's that?
That you're just the messenger. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, so and I also want to say this, just in defense of the guy, because he gets a lot of shit. I think that a lot of people see him as sort of like a I don't know, some people call him a drama dude, What's that?
Shit starter.
Shit starter, exactly. I think that he gets that it gets called that because he, one, is a comedian and has a very brash sensibility, brash way of going about things, and two, he is very passionate about a lot of issues, and so he'll kind of say somewhat irreverent things, but I think ultimately he really does want to have like real dialogue with people who is in opposition to. So I do think he would have made a good like addition to the to Mythicist Milwaukee, but that's just that and that's just a little bit of a little thing I want to say before.
Did he have something where you're going to read something specific?
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm going on a little bit of sleep, so I'm a little off right now. So here we go. So he said, when you talk to the Mythicist guys, and this is what he wrote. Okay. Don't let them get away with that BS saying that I did not get invited because I refused to talk to them on the phone. I was busy when the guy first messaged me to chastise me for saying I was going to show up and dance around their guest. I didn't have time to get on Skype, and I haven't owned a phone in over 3 years, but they never once said that getting on Skype or talking to them on the phone was a prerequisite to being invited, because I obviously would have. In fact, they already decided that I wasn't going to be invited before that ever happened. Now they are trying to make excuses on why I wasn't invited, and they're trying to excuse and they're sorry, it's the writing's very small. Their lame go-to excuse seems to be that I refuse to talk to them on the phone, which is not true. It's just yeah. So that's he had a little bit more to say, but I feel like I should give you guys a chance to respond to that.
Okay, so as far as like to speak on the phone, like right, what I did ask, and he's talking about me because this was happening on my personal Twitter in a DM, right? Now, I wanted to talk to him, and I specifically said the reason why I wanted to talk was because over text message, all inflection is gone. We can see like that you can't hear tonality, and that things are going to be misunderstood, especially when things are tense. And I specifically asked multiple times, and then he just said, "No, I said I don't have a phone. I can't do Skype." But he goes, but basically what he said was, I prefer to do it this way. So I had to kind of concede to like what his says, and we did have the conversation on text. Now, he'd been very critical of Mythcon, but so has Christiosity. So have you, right? Yeah. But you were when our first calls, and both to you and Music Man Mike, were, can we have a conversation? I said we need to have it either on Skype or over the phone. The answer was yes, yes, and yes. So I trust people that I can talk to. When someone is being cagey and doesn't want to talk, it doesn't mean that I can't trust them, but I'm going to trust the post that I'm going to talk to more. So had we had that conversation, right, you're going to do it. But I felt that it was cagey because he said, I prefer to talk by text, when I was expressing that we really need to talk by phone.
And it was also beyond that. I mean, we had our lineup set for a while. Now
that's true. That wasn't a spot.
Yeah, I mean,
open.
So this
we could have. You can always open.
So it's kind of irrelevant. I mean, we
did actually say something in regards to that. I mean, first of all, I want to say that I just think that I think that there was some unfortunate miscommunications that occurred in the situation.
I'd be happy to talk.
And I'm not putting that on like, I'm putting that on both parties, you know. So like I don't really like, I think that, you know, what you've said is fair. Like I do think that, you know, I would probably be the same way in a situation like that with someone. Like, I'd want to have a, like, you know, kind of a dialogue. And if it seemed like that person was not willing to speak with me, I would feel a little sketched out.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to talk with
Dusty. Here's it. If Dusty wants to have that phone call with me, I will absolutely have it. I mean, our lineup is pretty stuck now, but I mean, we do stuff in the future. You know, if he wants to have that conversation, I'm happy to do it. In fact, Dusty was one of the first people that I saw in atheism videos. I think that his videos on the Bible, when he does, are some of the funniest comedy I've ever heard.
Back in the day.
I would, and I told Dusty, I would like to talk to you. I wanted to talk to him for some time.
But, you know.
Well, I'm just going to, because I just told him that I would. I'm going to read the rest of what he had to say. Yeah. You know, and some of it is maybe stuff that you've already addressed, but here we go. They will undoubtedly accuse me of being unprofessional, but there are vids of me giving public speeches on my channel that were incredibly professional. They are making up excuses to try and cover for the fact that they obviously blacklisted me. They keep saying Dusty isn't blacklisted. He can buy a ticket and show up if he likes, but that's obviously not what anybody's talking about. We are talking about being blacklisted from speaking. The way they are trying to twist things. And this is the last part. I was specifically told the reason I could not be allowed to speak is because they already had their speakers list set in stone, and they could not possibly change it. But we all know that you were added after that, and many other people also have been added. So they have been dishonest with me since the very beginning. That's the last part that you.
Can we change? I mean, can we change it around? We kind of are the organizers, so we can do that. So I mean, I guess we can always add there's a time that we can do it. But then again, we could do that. But really, to me, it's primarily, yes, we have the lineup set, so it does gum things up if you're going to insert people. But if you really want to, yeah, I agree, you can. So he's got maybe a bit of a point there, but the main point really is that I need to talk to somebody on the phone. If I'm going to think you're cagey, that's weird. And again, Mike and Chrissy especially have been extremely critical at Mythcon, you to a degree, but all of you guys were right up front. Yes, you agreed to talk right away, and it happened right away. And those conversations, I think, went well.
I think we need to hit the main point on the head is at the time that he contacted us,
sure.
we had our panels locked down. And then we had some people have conflicts, whatever it is, those opened up. But because of the cagey shit that happened at the time that he contacted us, and he was like, put me on a panel, get me there. I want to be there, blah, blah. It was like, okay, dude, first of all, calm down. It's full up. But then when stuff opened up, you think that was going to be the first person that we would come back to? No way in a million years.
So in a way, he was on the list. He was just near the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right.
Vadim?
Yeah.
Vadim, can I chime in on this? Just Sean, I'm off camera.
Sure.
Very, very nice guys. Unfortunately, there is a lot of stock that goes into professionalism. And unfortunately, the way Dusty Smith started the conversation with us is that he was writing these ridiculous tweets about quote unquote dancing that were worded as if they were threats towards our guests. They were. Go back and read them. They were worded as if they were threats. Bunty, I'm coming for you. All of this ridiculousness, right? So that's our first interaction with Dusty, right?
I just want to say very quickly that I saw a lot of those tweets and I did not interpret it that way. I thought that it was like just really kind of it was a little in your face, but it was meant to be in jest.
So let me ask you this question then. In the professional world, if you're going in for a job interview or for some opportunity, is your first comments that out of your mouth in the job interview stating I'm coming for you? So, let's not be ridiculous here. Dusty knew exactly what he was doing. He was trolling us. Hold on.
You guys have lots of people who conduct themselves on Twitter in really reprehensible, far worse ways.
Sure, but that is not them trying to position for themselves as a speaking spot.
Additionally, and Shu makes a really
good all right, fair point.
Her and Greg recommended you and Dusty simultaneously. Correct. I don't know why.
Correct.
Maybe we went in reverse alphabetical order.
But this is a lesson to Dusty and anybody else that uses these tactics to get with an opportunity like this. We don't know him. He doesn't know us, right? You don't start off by trolling us. You have the conversation. And then when we say, hey, we're going to extend an olive branch, even though you're acting ridiculous, we are going to have a call with you, Dusty, or Skype or whatever, and then you still refuse to do that. Are you going to hire that person?
Right.
Are you going to hire the person that acts like that and have to worry about the rest of your speakers and attendees and people? Because safety is our #1 priority, and that's safety from being bullied, that's safety from being, treated like shit in public. And if this is the way this guy is trying to interact with us on Twitter, how is he going to act in person? So this is a lesson. This is a lesson to Dusty. You're not going to get any speaking gigs this way. I don't know. He calls himself a comedian. I'm telling you this. If you show up to the club and you talk to the manager and say, hey, I'm coming for you, you're not getting any stage time. So that's just my piece. Go ahead.
but it's
But the point,
I understand. Like I just, obviously he's not here to defend himself, which is unfortunate. But he did want me to say this, so that's.
we're happy to hear it. And again, I'm still happy to talk to Dusty. But the point was, I really thought that I could get through to Dusty. I really did, but I needed that phone conversation, and he didn't want to have it. And I thought, well, then I'm not going to be able to do it.
Well, maybe would you guys be open to having him on the podcast at some point?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
All right. Well, I'll relay that to him, and I just, I understand your points. I think it's too bad that things worked out the way that they did. I don't necessarily I'm not laying blame on like either party, but I do think that at the end of the day, he actually is just really passionate about these topics, and I think it gave him some bravado in the way that he went about things, and anyway, I'll move on to the last thing that I wanted to say.
Vadim, I don't disagree with you, but
Yeah.
the point, I guess the end at the end of the day, there are millions of creators out there, and
Yeah.
there are awesome people, and there are less than awesome people, and there's some people in between. And first impressions really matter. And props to you for doing such a good job of, interacting with us in a civil matter. Yet you've been critical, but hey, that's completely your right, and more power to you. That makes us, try to be better and try to be stronger. So, it's a good learning opportunity for him if he wants to be kind of relevant in the scene, or anyone else that's watching that's a creator. Be civil with people and fucking buy a phone. I don't. I mean, sorry, Jesus.
I think that probably, and I understand your point about people's behavior in public and on Twitter and whatnot. Outside of Mythicist Milwaukee doesn't necessarily have full bearing on Mythicist Milwaukee, but I think probably a lot of people who are watching who are critical are think it's that there's just something really ironic about the fact that behavior like that is kind of seen as just sacrosanct, and yet at the same time, we don't have to have a conversation about I won't wouldn't even rape you tweet, because I know you guys have talked about that for a million hours, but you know what I'm saying.
No, you make a good point. You make a good point, and that's why I say it came down to the phone call. We talked to everybody else, with the Sargon thing, right? I had talked to him, I didn't think it, but I really did want to have that conversation so I could ask some questions in private and get the feel, and that I really just, you need to do that, and someone that's going to be dodgy on that. If Sargon had been like, no, I'm absolutely not going to do that.
All right, we've killed this topic.
That would probably been a no there too.
Yeah, I have thoughts on that topic, but I just, because of the fact that I know that you guys, it's just been so over talked or just talked quite a bit, so we don't have to discuss that whole thing. So there's one last thing that I wanted to bring up. And I don't necessarily expect you guys, you guys don't have to have an answer to this, because I don't think it really has to do with you guys. And this is something that occurred kind of while Mythicist Milwaukee was this year's lineup was being put together and whatnot. But I just want to say that since joining, I found out about the whatchamacallit, sorry, I'm a little tired and kind of blanking on words that I shouldn't. The lawsuit that Richard Carrier is working on with one of your producers, Mario Quadracci, is that how to say his name? And I just I need to just say, because I feel like it's really, I feel like Richard Carrier does not represent my values as like a person. And I feel like kind of him being included in the lineup, given the fact that he like for those who are watching who don't know what I'm talking about, he's suing a group of people for $1.9 million with the aid of Mario Quadracci. And I think that the lawsuit is very frivolous. I've seen like, you know, a decent amount of like the claims and read his letter to PZ Myers, and I just I feel like it's just a really bizarre situation, and the thing that I don't like about it is that it actually makes me feel like you know, his presence sort of makes other, because he's there kind of supposedly to be talking about things that I care about, that people like Chrisiosity, Mike Rowlands, and a few other guests care about, and like I just feel like he's just not a like a good spokesperson for us. Like he makes, I feel like his presence makes us look a little silly. Now I know he's a different person than us and whatnot, but it just, I don't know. I needed to kind of voice that, and like I don't know how much else I have to say about it, but it's
well, we can comment.
Yeah. And one thing I'll comment, right? One I've heard that Mario Quadracci is our sugar daddy and so on and so forth. And like, and although, yeah, that Mario has helped fund us, the person that's given the most money to the organization is myself, right? So if anyone should be called the daddy, it would be me, but I don't want that, right? This is something
He wants it. He wants it.
Would you know, this is something I believe in, and you know, it's is right? So what Mario, now you're talking specifically Mario and Carrier, right? So I understand that Carrier is in some sort of a lawsuit either against Skepticon and some other people.
Libel.
Right. And to be honest, the first I heard about the Mario Quadracci Carrier connection was on PZ Myers' video. So I knew nothing about it. And to be honest, don't know a whole lot more than you do. Again, most of these things with attorneys, like, you know, you can't say this and that. Did Carrier share with Mario more than he's shared with me? Maybe. I don't know. That's their business, and I just don't know. But I know that this is happening outside of MM. This, you know, this is not something.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that, and that's one reason why I kind of prefaced it by saying that, like, you guys don't necessarily have to comment on it, because I don't hold you guys responsible for that. I mean, in a way, though, I mean, there is kind of like an argument to be made that Richard Carrier, before that occurred, was not a great spokesperson for like, you know, social justice values. But I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is that I just like it makes me feel weird being on a bill with the guy and like him, like people watching us and kind of feeling like we're on the same side. It's just it's weird to me. But
Okay.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. And the last thing that I want to say is that I really do. I would like, if you know, if Mario's listening, I hope he can kind of really take a good look at. I don't know if he has watched PZ's video on the topic, but I hope he can, like, you know, really look at the facts. I think that the lawsuit is frivolous, and he should reconsider his involvement with it. So yeah, now over to you guys.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. I'll bullet point it just because it's easier. One is Richard Carrier has been at every Mythcon since we first started. I can speak personally for myself, not for MM, is that the only reason why I know about this organization is that I saw that he was going to be in Milwaukee. I bought a ticket. I came here, and then I got involved with the team. He is the guy that brought me into atheism. So from a credentials perspective, impeccable. Secondly, Richard Carrier is someone who was active in the Atheism Plus world. And furthermore, after the last Mythcon, he was enduring. He was not relative. He was very critical of Sargon. So he has pretty much every element of leftist element. His resume is stacked in it. And the common trope that's out there in the internet, I'm sure you've heard it, the left eats its own. This is exactly what's happening. The fact that you're I don't want to accuse of anything, but the point is that the fact that you're going, that guy's not on the team anymore. F that guy. And
well, the reason why I'm doing that is not it's really because I think that fundamentally, if he is going to be representing a social justice, I mean, what is the name of the panel that he's going to be on? It's social justice related, right?
Yeah.
Damn it. The title. Okay. Let me give you.
I'll get it faster.
I guess it doesn't matter, but they're going to be situation social justice issues, and I feel like there's fundamentally no justice when someone who will file a frivolous lawsuit at $1.9 million and force a group of people to raise money through Patreon in order to defend themselves. And, there's just no justice there. So it's sort of like, I agree with you. He has certain credentials that are impressive. And he might even in conversation be like a fun, nice guy. I don't know. I just think that his, actions speak louder than words, and his actions have been pretty shitty. So. Yeah,
quick thing on this is neither you nor I, certainly us, we have no idea if this is a frivolous lawsuit. I mean, this is hearsay, so we can't comment. And B, it is troubling, and I would just a point of introspection. If someone has one, how many black marks do you get on you before you're out of the tribe? Because Vadim, I'm hearing that it's one. And if you have one position that doesn't agree, or you did one thing, let's say for argument's sake that it's a frivolous lawsuit, you filed a frivolous lawsuit. Fuck you, you're out of the tribe. We may agree on 99%.
The thing is that there were, I mean, there's certainly other things, the ways that Richard has conducted himself that, that was not like a deal breaker for me necessarily, but was a little weird. That was kind of a bit concerning. And so it's not just that. There are other things. And when you add those things to this lawsuit, which I just firmly believe from everything that I've seen, it just seems incredibly unjustified. And, and really the fact that he has someone like Mario backing him up allows him to sort of put a group of people in like they're more or less, in my opinion, being bullied by this person. And then again, to me, bullies are fundamentally not very good spokespeople for social justice. So
Vadim, I just want to check. Vadim, do you know what the suit is about?
Yeah, I do.
What is it about?
It's about he put a I think what is it called, like a slap. He has prohibited a bunch of people from speaking about things relating to occurrences at conferences and stuff like that. And
you know what?
And from what I understand, the everything that they have talked about are things that he has admitted to in court documents and things like that. Like nothing that they have said has been slanderous or libelous.
So that is what the lawsuit is about. Is it slanderous or libelous? So in a normal workplace, when you have HR come to you and say, hey, this person is stating that you sexually harassed them or whatever, there's a formal process where lawyers get involved. You go through the process, they go through the investigation process, say, what happened, what exactly was the case. They talk to witnesses, they talk to people, and say, okay, and then they make a decision. Was this sexual harassment? Is this person? And then decide what they're to do with the employee, right? So unfortunately, when you're a public figure, there isn't this process in place. So
there's no HR department.
There's no HR department at all. And unfortunately, a lot of people, like Demo was saying, get crucified in the public eye. And what happened with Richard Carrier, and I don't know all the specifics, but I know the overhead, the bird's eye view of what's happening. So after, you know, certain things were said about him at certain conferences and on certain blogs, I'm not even going to name their names, he was then denied employment services for other conferences or other, you know, other jobs, essentially. So when you are limited, when your income is limited, you don't really have a lot of options.
Not only when you're an atheist, but you're also a mythicist.
Yeah. Well,
and
when you're an
your
atheist,
circle is
so
small.
you have a lot of things happening. You have the atheist conferences are essentially dying, and if you don't believe me, go to any of them and see. And then you have, you know, this what is being said about him that's preventing him from even, you know, attending. He actually did go to one. I think there was one in California where they invited him as a speaker, found out about some of the stuff that was being said, actually kicked him out and forced him to sit at a cafe across the street from the conference where he wasn't even allowed onto the premise.
But the things that were said were things that he had already admitted to. People were just talking about things that were already out.
Sure.
Out there.
Sure. I understand what you're saying, but that is what the lawsuit is about: is to take it to court and say, okay, were these things said? What you know, you know, which parties are telling the truth, which aren't? That's what this whole lawsuit is for, and that's essentially what our legal system is for.
And
say
the
that
judge could
yeah,
call it
correct,
frivolous, right?
Correct.
If it goes
and
to court, it could get
so
dismissed as frivolous.
so to argue against you know, this type of process, I mean, you're arguing against the judicial system.
Yeah,
I mean, this
exactly.
is what we this is why.
No, I'm not. No. I'm not arguing against the judicial system. There are, you know, justified cases, and then there are cases that, like I think we'd all agree that are, you know, like there is such a thing as a frivolous lawsuit, right? I mean,
sure. That's
the judge can
like, so I'm what
to pay all the court costs,
which may happen in this case. You never know.
A judge could rule it frivolous, and any of the defense fees now have to be paid by the plaintiff. Yeah.
All right. Well, from what I've seen, it really, like, it makes me feel uncomfortable to kind of, I needed to just mention it and kind of distance myself from the dude, because I personally just, I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe there is an element to the lawsuit that I'm not privy to, that that would change my mind if I knew. But knowing what I've seen, I certainly just it was already a little weird to have him kind of representing
representing himself.
Representing himself. Correct.
Nobody else.
And the other thing is, dude, when I mean, it's completely your right to have this opinion, absolutely. But if tomorrow someone accuses you of sexual assault and you did nothing wrong, and then someone like Dusty goes, fuck that guy, I don't want to be associated with Vadim,
who's your employer,
or his cat.
Well, the thing is that these are the things that people mentioned were things that he admitted to, and you know,
would have a lawsuit for libel.
They were not like he admitted. We don't have to go into them because. Like I don't want to kind of like make claims without knowing like exactly what they are. But what
a character judgment, right? I mean, you're saying I don't like his character, right? But yet we haven't addressed any of the arguments, right?
It's not just character.
It's going to be about the idea
of suing a group of people for like a group of people who really don't have the means to defend themselves in court, have to raise the money through like friends and patrons, basically. I mean, it's just everything that I've seen about it. And also another thing is that like I want to throw out there that like PZ Myers is not necessarily somebody that like I would white knight for, you know, like he's someone who at times I have like agreed with things he said, and then at other times I've really disliked either kind of how he went about things or just disagreed with him entirely. So it's not like some sort of like tribalistic, like, you know, I'm taking like a certain side. I'm really just kind of like if this was flipped and, you know, someone who you know, the shoes were on the other feet, I look at it the same way. You know, like if Richard Carrier was the one being sued in this way, I would feel like the aggressors in that situation were just in the wrong.
Dude,
but here's the
libel is
irony.
illegal. Libel is illegal. That's just the
And
fact.
here's this weird irony. Speaking of like PZ Myers and allegations of sexual assault, like PZ himself was accused of some kind of sexual harassment at his own university, right? So it's weird that he would kind of go into this whole believe the victim thing. Now PZ will say, but I went through a process and it was determined that I was innocent.
Oh, wait.
But that's because he
shit.
had a university there that already has an existing process to do that. They made the determination. So with knowing and nothing else, I go in with whatever they decide. Again, this case, right? I don't know. I have no idea what happened to PZ Myers things. All I know is they adjudicated it. However, like this, there is no entity in which to adjudicate this. And that is why the law, you know, the courts are essentially going to have to do it. So,
Anyway.
you know, I mean, they could decide against him. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Good way to cap it.
Sure, yeah, but those people will still have to have had to go through a rigorous process, and they.
So did PZ.
Yeah. Well,
So
then
did PZ.
Then they shouldn't have
If he was
libeled.
falsely accused, right?
Possibly.
And I'm like,
Possibly.
I don't think he had to raise over $50,000 for lawyer fees, and I don't think that several other people were implicated with his, you know, whatever happened with him. And you know, if he did do that, then that, you know, certainly, like, I guess this is the first that I'm hearing of that, then that, you know, if he genuinely did do that, that sucks. That's shitty.
Ryan's point. He's part of a university system. Like we all work. I mean, this is something we do in our spare time. We have friggin' 9-to-5 jobs, and there are codified systems in which we have to play there. HR departments, whatever it is. And so the same thing with PZ. He had that. Richard is a freelancer, just like you, I assume. So if some shit happens to you, you don't have a system in which to play in. Your only system is the U.S. court system, and that's exactly what Richard is doing. So we can't.
It does suck that it costs everyone a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the one thing that I'll just say before we kind of wrap up that, because we don't have to overtalk all of this. Right. I do wish it's been a, you know, I watched the video a couple of times when it first came out. I've also watched some of Thunderfoot's videos but those weren't really in relation to. They touched on things that occur in the lawsuit, or that are mentioned in the lawsuit. But what was I going to say? That I just you know what? I've lost my train of thought. I apologize.
And that's a perfect way to move to the next time.
No. This is what I was going to say. That I just I do wish that I had had the opportunity to kind of go over the, you know, the facts of the case, because I have looked things over. It's just been a while since I have, and you know, so I guess I can't speak about it as capably as I'd like to. But anyhow, we can move on. I just really, and again, I don't hold you guys personally responsible for that lawsuit at all. Like I really don't. I just had to kind of like throw out there that I think that it doesn't seem kosher to me, and I feel weird sharing the stage with a dude like that. So
hey, related but completely unrelated to that. This is just top of mind, but you know the Louis C.K. thing?
Yeah.
I know that's topical because he was just on stage recently. We haven't had a podcast in a while. I really wanted to talk about it. I was going to ask your thoughts on not only the situation he was involved in, but also, you know, the fact that he's doing comedy.
Well, it's an interesting thing. You know, I actually worked at the comedy club that he did his show at, and one thing that I think a lot of people probably assume, not that this really like matters in terms of kind of like the details of what's going on, but I just think it's interesting, is that like the Comedy Cellar is a tiny place. It's small. It's like practically the size of this room, you know? And like I worked there as a waiter when I was like 21, and it was awesome because a lot of comedy veterans would play there, like Dave Chappelle, who smoked me up all the time. In fact, he was responsible for getting me fired because I got really blazed one time and I was just doing a really shitty job on the job. But Louis C.K. would do there. Robin Williams he came in one time, and that was fucking amazing. Seeing that guy just like riff. But anyway, when it comes to Louis C.K., I know a lot. I know a few of the women that he actually jerked off in front of. Because I went to, or rather, I was a part of the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater at the time that happened. One of the incidents occurred at the Aspen Comedy Festival. And you got to understand, Louis C.K. is just purely comedically, like, he's definitely one of my heroes. I mean, the fact that he's done some reprehensible shit, I cannot take away from, the truth that the man is just a comedy genius. So I do think that people deserve second chances. I do think that like him kind of going to a place like the Comedy Cellar, which is just a hole in the wall kind of a place, is, I personally feel like he should be able to do that. And, it all depends on kind of how, like, over time he treats it. Like, I would like, because his stand-up is so deeply personal, I would like to see him make stand-up where he talks about that fucked up behavior, finds a way to make it funny, because that guy can make the most fucked up things funny. And yet, have like a sense of sensitivity to it. I'd like to hear him kind of more just really, I think something like that is something that someone can come back from, but they really need to kind of, I don't know, it's maybe, just one statement alone isn't necessarily enough. People have to really kind of let it be known that they are, really that they've really changed. And
I'm reading between the lines, but it's fair to assume then that you think, well, you called it reprehensible, so he did something that was antithetical to your principles. Would that be accurate?
I know the people that he did this in front of, they were fucking freaked out. They were really, they did not expect him to do that at all.
Well, hold on, but according to how this happened, and you can correct me since you have personal information, consent was given, correct?
What? No consent was given.
Yes, 100%. This is a well-known fact of this story, is that he asked for consent. He asked if he could do it. They said yes, whoever it was, and then he did it.
Right.
And
the ethical conundrum being, should he have even asked in the first place?
Correct. So that's what we're discussing. Not did he just whip it out.
Okay. I mean, I'll admit. See, this is over 15 years ago that we're talking about. So I did hear it from their mouths when it occurred, but because of the fact that it's been so long, I can't remember the details. Now, I will say that if that indeed was the case, they never thought in a million. Okay, you could say that I am making an assumption here, but I truly believe that they did not in a million years think he'd actually do it. They thought that he was just fucking around like comedians do, and they basically called his bluff, and then he whipped his dick out, and they were fucking horrified. So
okay, so in that situation, because I completely agree with you. I mean, it seems like a weird thing to do. Obviously,
definitely.
This didn't only happen once. There are other people that he did this to besides the Aspen people. But anyway, go on.
I don't know those people. You mentioned you do. it may be a, I don't know what you want to call it, some sort of a sexual proclivity, which not everyone would agree with. But is that something that you get demonized for? Like fucking Bill Clinton got his dick sucked by an intern and virtually nothing happened to him.
No.
He's still regarded as a heroic president.
Oh, I agree.
Now you got a comedian who, well, I mean, yes, I wouldn't do that, but he jerked off in front of some people. Maybe they didn't like it, although they gave consent. Maybe they thought it was a joke, whatever it is. This gets brought up 15 years later, like that was some fucked up shit, and now career over. This is, I guess, what
I didn't say that I think that his career should be over. I didn't.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point that I was going to ask you is we've come to a time where, you know, you've got like on the one, you've got degrees, right? So you've got like Bill Cosby raping a bunch of women.
Yeah,
then
that's definitely no career for you.
Like he's so beyond up. It's like 10 degrees worse than Harvey Weinstein, right?
Yeah.
But then you've got like Louis, and he's essentially lumped into the same category by a group of people who are outrage machining on the internet. So how
and then that's lumped in with Aziz Ansari.
Yeah, it's something like that. So how do you see all of this playing out, and do you feel like you have any responsibility to be like, hey, you know, stop sensationalizing, like these things are different?
It's really like odd. Like Aziz is someone who I also knew in New York back from like the days when I was doing comedy and stuff, and super nice guy, but that doesn't mean that he didn't do anything inappropriate. I have seen a lot of people who I admired and also liked who achieve a certain level of fame, and it's very kind of easy to kind of take advantage of that. And I've seen people kind of, in my opinion, kind of like be very coercive in a way that isn't cool. So I don't know if that actually occurred. And you know, none of us were there with Aziz Ansari, but I don't know. It's a question. Can you repeat your question? Sorry.
The distinctions, right? Matt Damon actually got vilified for making such distinctions that a catcall is different than a full-on sexual assault or a rape.
Meaning,
right?
like
that one's harassment and one is a complete physical violation.
And does the side that sides with more left-leaning folks, is there a responsibility there to say this is sensationalism, and maybe for example, making a video going, listen, motherfuckers, you guys need to cool it, you know, on.
You know, it's such a touchy thing, because the thing is that there very well may be some, you know, here and there, some elements of, as I think you put it, sensationalism, or perhaps there are going to be people who are unfairly accused. Yet at the same time, I think that there is a group of people who they look at things like that and kind of start assuming that that's the norm, when I don't think that there's a good reason to believe that that is indeed the norm. So
herself was actually.
So, Vadim, I completely agree with you, and I think this very nicely brings us full circle. And Brian read, you know, those weird meme tweets from Turning Point USA, because when you put content out there, you make videos, you get up in the morning and you're like, what am I going to cover today, right? And you make a conscious decision, and maybe it's unconscious, I don't know, that you're going to skew into pointing out the deficiencies of the right, or you skew the other way. And that's why I asked that question, is if the left doesn't self-police, self-censor, and do that, and wake up in the morning going, you know what, this is fucked up, I need to call this out because these people are part of my team, and I need to make sure that they know that they're stepping out of line. And you're like, well,
they do, though, to a certain degree. I mean, like, for instance, she's not someone that I like really like as a person, or I don't really know her, but Rose McGowan, she you know, she and the whole Me Too community, when Asia Argento, I'm sure you heard about this whole thing, when that occurred, I mean, they were very willing to kind of step up and say like, hey, that's not cool as well. Now that's kind of a weird situation though, because I mean, I don't know, I've read conflicting information, some information that maybe makes it sound like the accuser is an opportunist. I don't know. I don't want to say that, make that claim for certain, because I don't know. I don't know all the facts. None of us do. But you know, that's a situation where they, you know, easily could have just kind of either swept that under the rug or kind of said like, yeah, that's not as bad as this other stuff. But they applied the same level of scrutiny to her that they did to other people. And so, you know, I do think that the left actually polices itself more than people will say, but than critics, a lot of critics will say. But yeah, I mean, like if I definitely like agree. Like for instance, Hillary Clinton, there were, even though that I think that she was far and away the superior choice of two really abysmal choices, I was very critical of the woman. I mean, like I came up with a hashtag, I'm with her, but only because the alternative makes me want to shoot myself in the brains, balls, ass, and face. So, you know, I like am all for kind of, I don't know, just calling out the left when there are genuine reasons to. You know, she was a very corporate candidate, and there were lots of things to you know, criticize her for.
Yeah, but that's a political candidate. That's not a
But the
particular
left is
action.
too big, though. Sorry, the left and the both are too big. There's the progressive left, the liberal left,
And
you have the anarchist left, right? I mean, these, you know, the anarchist left and liberal left do not like each other.
And
There's plenty.
I have to say though, do you guys think that it's a little like I almost feel like you guys are contradicting yourselves a little bit, because you're talking about how the left eats itself, and then you're also talking about how it doesn't police itself. So which is it?
No, it's both. It's 100% both. It's eats itself, but for the reasons that not for the reasons that it should police itself, if you know what I mean.
Well, the right does the same thing. The whole idea of cuck-servative, right? I mean, you have the populist right are absolutely not cool with the standard Republican GOP line.
I guess, Vadim, just saying, you are probably the perfect person with the perfect track record of political leaning to talk about the Louis C.K. thing. Yeah. And I heard, I don't want to, maybe this is a great video idea for you, but I haven't heard Jack. And especially like, you know, the guy, you know, fuck, man, this is like, I would have been salivating the moment it came out, because
I knew the guy would not like. I knew Chappelle, but Louis C.K. would never remember me. Like I don't want to make it sound like we were buddy.
Your channel or whatever. I don't mean to tell you what content to create, but it would seem like an amazing thing for you to show your centricity, whatever it is, the fact that you're nonpartisan, the fact that you can call bullshit when you see it.
Well, see I actually have made several videos in that vein. I mean, like basically when the first wave of like anti-SJW videos, and again, that's like SJW is just a silly term to me. But when it first sort of caught on, you know, there were basically, you know, a lot of people that, or rather, you know, movements that I support were kind of being mocked. And I was all for it, because the thing is that like certain examples were cases where they should have been mocked. Like, you know,
poetry, you mentioned.
What's that?
Feminist slam poetry.
Yes. I made CC made a video against feminist slam poetry. Now, in retrospect, in a way, I sort of like I stand behind the video, because that poetry was incredibly cringy, and I think that stuff like that kind of makes feminists look bad. But at the same time, I don't know. I do feel like I didn't realize at the time that there was such a pile-on on feminism and kind of where all of it was going. And so there is a part of me that kind of feels like maybe I shouldn't have kind of added to the pile of bullshit. But there are other things like for instance, I made a video about Lacey Green before her sort of like, you know, kind of mild change, or maybe some would call major change, whatever it is. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And she talked about rape jokes and how they were absolutely, you know, just something that people should never do under any circumstance. And Cece made a video all, you know, just challenging that idea. So there's videos like that. We had a video about that woman who got up in like some kid's face about cultural appropriation because he had dreadlocks. That, I don't know if you remember that case. There was like some video from that. So, you know, I was doing that because of the fact that I felt like, you know what, even though that like this woman, she's probably like pro BLM, and I like BLM is also another group that I often like think shoots themselves in the foot, and I can kind of see like why they are sometimes mocked, yet at the same time I am on board with like what most of what they stand for. And I guess my point is, I'm sorry, maybe I'm meandering a little bit here, but my point is that like you know, I made several videos where I was able to kind of, you know, just talk about things of that nature. And I don't these days, because the thing is, you know what, if I made videos that were like so easily like Sargon can, and I could talk about like, you know, 20 different things a month or more, then I would kind of, you know, maybe talk about some of these things a little more in depth. But I can really only make 2 to 3 videos a month because my videos take so much time to create. And so, yeah, in this climate, I feel like I have to make the videos that I do.
Actually, I was going to give you some props because you have a really good production value, and
Yeah.
they're funny. I mean, you got different characters. They come in. The last one I watched was the Shira one that you put up.
Right.
And, I mean, you made some awesome points in that. You know, that's why, you know, this taking sides thing is kind of dumb because, you know, I agreed with you in the vast majority of every point that you made. So I think that if there is any perceived animosity, it is, you know, misplaced. And I think in September when you're here, we're gonna have a beer. We're gonna have a great fucking time. And
Sure.
don't have a ticket yet, you should get one because they're
yeah. Well, and I just before we wrap up, I just wanted to say a couple of things. So like one of the weird criticisms is that we have like a misbalance, or we're unbalanced left and right. People keep forgetting about Marissa Janae Johnson, which is really sad. They keep forgetting about Karen Garst. They keep forgetting about a couple other people.
I think that they just don't know the people on the left as well. It's balanced. And they just haven't.
Well, this is one thing though. I mean, first of all, I want to say 2 things. One is that interacting with you guys, I did genuinely get the impression that you really did want to get as many people from the left as you could, and as many heavy hitters as you could. I do have to you know, just step up and say that that's the impression that I got from talking to you guys. So you know, I think that that's something that's a little hard for some people to believe, and maybe some people will think that I'm naive for thinking that. But that's the impression that I got from you.
That's part of the problem with the narrative. See, this is where the narrative's like really jacked up. We not only are we trying to represent multiple sides of the argument, we also have you know, we have people coming that can promote the quote unquote SJW side. The problem is people say we have a stacked audience. Well, when you have the left speakers and the fans of the speakers telling people not to go to the event, what does that do to your ratio?
Well, it's not just, I mean, you guys must understand why, like, I mean, like a lot of left-wing people may not feel comfortable.
Oh, no, I don't. I absolutely do not understand that we have security. We have police officers outside. We have a perfect track record. We've never had any.
No. I'm not talking about being in physical danger. I'm talking about being in just like
hearing things they might not like. You know, that's a problem.
We can never talk.
That's a problem. Yeah. If we can't, you know, and that's the thing, Vadim. You know, the other criticism is
but they do talk. I mean, like for instance, like someone like ContraPoints, who I think rejected you guys, has
exactly.
Has had conversations with Blair White, has had conversations with Sargon, has had conversations with plenty of people. Sure. And it's more than just the like I actually do think that it's the whole argument that people have about like the left not being willing to debate is somewhat overstated.
It's literally happening in this case, Vadim. I can't tell you how many people on the quote unquote left, because there are a lot of people that are on the left on the stage. They're just not left enough for some people. But we've asked so many people on the quote unquote left, multiple people that just didn't show up. So how is it being overstated? I mean, we are literally experiencing.
They I mean, like you almost make it sound like they should like
they 100% should show up to argue their principles and their points. 100%.
If you have,
but why? If they feel like there are people being platformed,
Vadim, see, you know, okay. Let me just take yours. One other thing with the criticism. We were an atheist organization. Yes, we were an atheist organization, just like how your channel focused on atheism a lot. We have evolved over time. We still pay tribute to atheism, and there is other ways of normalizing atheism. Shoe on Head does it. Armored does it. You know, Derek Blackman talks about atheism in his roundabout way. I mean, you can promote something without actually having to tackle it all the time. And unfortunately, the atheism argument in the West is dead. It's like watching the same movie you've seen over and over, or listening to the same stand-up set you've listened to over and over. But the thing is, the original atheists, the Madeleine Murray O'Hares, the Carlins, Hitch, they showed up, even though the odds were stacked against them. They showed up and they argued and they argued and they argued, and they essentially argued themselves out of a job because, again, there is not a lot of interest in atheism anymore. So should the left show up? Absolutely.
Otherwise you see
whoever.
I just really understand why they'd just be like, fuck that. I mean, like,
no, Vadim, then
the way that things went last year, like I can see how people uncomfortable. And then also, you know, there once again, there are a lot of people like you know, there have been plenty of people who have criticized me for being a part of this event. And frankly, even though that I you know, like I think that there's a value in me going, I think that some of those criticisms are
Vadim. There is no such
but here's the thing though. Let's talk about what happened last year, because people again don't get the narrative right. We challenged Scientology. We had the father of the leader of the church there speaking out against Scientology and all the human rights violations they commit. We had a conversation about Islam and challenged Islam. We had a conversation about we had a debate on we had the Sargon debate, but that's what everyone talks about. I mean, they're talking about a child, Thomas Smith, going on stage and shitting the bed, and that's our fault somehow. Thomas Smith, who we've tried to set up conference calls with him so he can talk to Sargon ahead of time. We tried twice. He failed to show up. He's the one that decided to show up and act like that. So to say that the event is flawed because of one person's poor decisions, bullshit.
Exactly.
One of the things
that we should have given warnings. Thomas Smith should have given any trigger warnings.
One of the things that we tried to do, and we're really honored to work with all the speakers that we have coming this year, what we're actually trying to do is offer people opportunities, like a lot of first-timers on stage. All last year was first-timers on stage. A lot of people are going to be first-timers on stage this year. And then I hear the criticism of, oh, well, why would you invite that person or that person or that? And the people that are actually going are criticizing, you know, why are we having such a... We're trying to offer opportunities for people. So, like, what's wrong with that? You know, you guys are already having this conversation online.
There's nothing wrong. Look, there's nothing wrong with offering those people, like reaching out to them and saying, hey, would you like to do this? But if they don't want to be a part of it, I think I can think of plenty of reasons that are completely valid why they would not want to be. And
okay, so tell me, what are the reasons? Outside, you can't say Sargon, because that's the only reason.
Well, okay, first of all, why can't I say Sargon? I mean, like
you don't like Sargon? Great.
That's not the only reason, but that is certainly an excellent reason to for someone to not feel like they're, you know, the people want to be a part of things that they feel like you know, that represent who they are. And
do you think it would be smart for someone to say, I'm not going to go to VidCon because Anita Sarkeesian's going to be there, so therefore I have no way I'm going to go to VidCon? I'd say that person's a dummy.
Correct.
You know, see, this is the thing, okay? Like, I feel like what you guys are starting to build, and I think that this is like if you guys like sort of like own this, I would have like I don't know, I'd have more kind of like a more benevolent outlook on it. But like I feel like you guys are going more in the direction of Politicon, right? No,
we're not.
We're dealing with hard
Here's
politics.
this is the thing, you know, like we don't fit in a box. We don't fit in the atheist box. We don't fit in the Politicon box. We don't fit in the religious box. We're
a platypus.
We're unique. And you know, like anyone else, Vadim, you have to come up with something unique that people are talking about. And you know, Politicon's focused on very political figures that already, you know, like have, you know, huge platforms, and they're already doing, you know, major things and things like that. Yes, we have some people like that, but we're also offering opportunities to people.
Entertainment and
correct,
socio-political.
Well, yeah, we have
definitely
still go after religion. Politicon isn't going after religion. We're still talking about atheism this year. You know, we still have Ron Miscavige.
Right. Well, when I say Politicon, I mean that you're trying to kind of create very. I mean, I know that you guys frame things as discussions.
We're evolving,
but it seems like these are more debates.
Yeah,
we're conversations.
Yeah,
they're conversations because don't you think that one side is afraid of the other? There's a ton of fear going around. Like, oh my God, look at the guy.
Like someone does not have to be afraid. They just like if someone feels uncomfortable in a situation, like I would totally like understand like if some, like, I don't know, if Armored Skeptic did not, or well, he's more middle of the road, but like someone like Sargon did not want to, like if he was invited to a like an SJW fest to,
he would go. He would go, and then we would go.
What?
Yeah, we would all go, and that's the thing is what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do,
would go, but I would be like I would totally understand if he was like, yeah, this is not kind of like my sort of thing. And like the thing is that like a lot of people are being what.
Like, right.
Well, that's it. But again. So let's say, Vadim, because I know atheism is very important to you. Let's say Madeline Murray O'Hara is just like, you know what? I'm not going to challenge that bill in schools for prayer. You know, I don't feel like it. I don't, you know, like it. She stood up for her principles. She actually showed up into the Lion's Den, and, you know, she got some shit done. So you have to applaud people
it's more than that.
that are willing to take that on.
Loud, if you're going to be on the internet, if you want to sensationalize, if you want to go out there and have a platform, you're going to have a YouTube channel, whatever it is, well, then fucking put your money where your mouth is. Show up.
But they do put their money where their mouth is. The like a great deal of the people who have said no have been perfectly willing to have conversations with people on the internet. And
sure, that's where they're comfortable. But you got to ask yourself.
But so like. I don't understand though that they're still willing to have a conversation. They're willing to have a conversation on your stage.
Oh, that's fine. That's
that they are cowards.
We're not. I'm not saying they're
but
cowards.
Maybe he's saying
what I'm saying is
the fans.
Yeah, correct. No, what I'm saying is A, you're creating your own problem. You're telling people not to show up. B, you're not showing up. But the bigger thing is, look, we're creating opportunities.
I'm showing up.
Well, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about others.
But
I'm talking about others.
The people that watch a ContraPoints video and the people that watch a Sargon video, I don't think they're that different. I think that maybe people get afraid of each other. That's why we want people to come into the same sort of think, wow,
The thing is that
don't
Sargon is someone who I'm sorry, he's like a propagandist, and someone like and you know maybe you can go ahead and say, well, ContraPoints is I don't think that's the
I don't think so.
I think they all have their opinions.
Has got a lot to add to this conversation.
They all have their opinions, but here's the thing, Vadim. They all feel strongly about their opinions, but here's the thing. This is what you got to ask yourself. This is what I hope the rest of the critics ask themselves. What other conference is inviting you guys? Who else is spending 40 hours a week combined putting this thing together for 8 months? Who's doing that?
Guys,
so,
I
want to make this point because this is very important. When people start shitting on things, they don't realize how much blood, sweat, and tears go into this thing, and it's for them. We have not made 1 cent on this project. Brian is.
You think I'm shitting on it, by the way. I'm
not talking to you.
So
I'm just saying in general.
Don't show up.
I'm just saying the critics in general, like, they don't understand what happens behind the scenes. And, the other thing I always say to myself is, look, yeah, we may not be perfect. Nobody's perfect. VidCon for sure is not perfect. But you know what? As an individual, you can go and start your own conference anytime and get the fuck off of our back. Seriously, go do your own thing.
Again,
like,
he's not talking about you, Vadim.
No, I'm not talking about you, Vadim. I'm just saying in general. I keep hearing the same.
I just have a little bit of I don't know, a bit of a problem with this idea that like you're putting all of the responsibility of like them not wanting to, or not responsibility, but like you're acting like it's sort of a character flaw of theirs that they don't want to show up.
No. I'm not saying that.
That's okay. Well, then clarify.
What I'm saying is this: if you don't show up, shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. If you don't want to show up, shut the fuck up. Really, you've lost your ability to criticize.
And by the way, there was an attempt at
that just sounds like another version of what I was saying, because like
no.
Why would you tell someone to shut the fuck up if they didn't? You're saying like you're a coward for not showing up.
You had the opportunity to show up and change people's minds, and you decided not to take that opportunity. So you have lost your credibility.
But you're assuming so many things. First of all, like they okay. Well, when it comes to like this thing, like yes, you have left and right people, but the overwhelming majority of your like more popular people, of your heavy hitters, are people with much larger fan bases than I mean, like I'm one of the most popular people from the less and that you have at the con, and aside from Richard Carrier is probably the most well known, and I'm like a small fish in a pond, in the pond, really. Like I'm not like
Vadim, that is the
fans are not your enemies.
But that is the definition of an opportunity, when you can get in front of a bigger audience with people that have more influence or whatever. I mean, and that's
why I decided to come, because there are certain things that I kind of wanted to share with the community that were on my mind about this particular topic, especially that like I wanted the opportunity to kind of like say it to those people, even though that I think a great many, like I mean, maybe I will be pleasantly surprised, but I think that some people will, a good portion of the audience, are not really going to be on my page. Like they're
platforms. I mean, look at.
But they might be after the day's done.
Look at what happened last year when the unfortunate performance that Thomas had on stage. His audience grew from that. Now,
yeah, he did. But not only that, but it was before that where they were telling all their people not to go. Yeah. Like, and that's the thing that really drives me nuts. It's like you can't, advocate for one thing and be upset when it comes true. You know what I mean? Like you can't say
it's hypocritical to say don't go and then complain about the
ratio.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, be careful what you wish for.
I think what we're running the risk of is that, an H Bomber Guy fan is the enemy of a Sargon fan, and vice versa. That's
not true.
Bullshit. I honestly don't think that either of we could tell each other apart at the supermarket. You can't tell each other apart at the hospital. None of these places, football games, you don't know who's who, who's the SJW, who's the anti. We don't know. Like, I really think that we're closer, and if we could just back off a little bit. I think we both have. I admit that I have blind spots. There's something I'm gonna have to look into this. The thing with the Christian colleges that you've alerted me to, right? Like, we just need to get along. Like, if I can only,
I think that the reason why some people are hesitant to get along is because, again, certain people, and not everyone that you have that represents the right, but a good deal of the people who represent the right often do not. They're not very truthful people, and there's a repercussion for putting out like falsities and stuff like that, and so people don't want to be.
The other side could say the same thing.
What?
They cite the Candace Owens. The other side could say the same thing, and they'll cite 3 of your things about with the Turning Point USA, and you've got the Ben Shapiro. Like, they'll be like, look at Vadim, look how dishonest. There's quotes. It's even as Turning Point USA. Like, but this could be.
You can look at claims that those people have made, claims that I've made, and that demonstrably they've made claims that are factually inaccurate. Whereas maybe I've made some inaccurate claims here and there, but they certainly weren't, deliberate and
before you're disqualified.
But
Vadim, 5, 10.
But Vadim also, here's the thing though. This is where perception is reality.
Yeah.
Last year, the harassment campaign that was thrown upon us was not done by anybody on the right. When they're calling our hotel, saying that we're bringing Nazis, saying that what we represent, white nationalism or rape apologists, these comments were not coming from anyone on the right, and it wasn't 1 or 2. Our hotel got inundated, our theater got inundated, our inbox got inundated. We were, and I don't know if you were paying attention to Twitter at all last year, but our Twitter got inundated, calling us white supremacists, white nationalists, all of this shit. That's completely untrue.
I certainly do not think that you guys should be called white supremacists.
Well, it happened. It happened.
I think that it's fair to say that, like, at worst, you guys are platforming, and that's some people who are like some people are kind of not white supremacists, but like white supremacist enablers. I do believe that.
This whole gateway drug to the alt-right is as smart as that cannabis is a gateway drug to heroin and coke.
It's a great.
When people literally make statements, like talk to like people like what's his name? Millennial Woes.
I mean, the Mythcon. No, there you go. There's no actual white supremacists.
People talk to people like Millennial Woes and literally say, like I want to instruct you on, like, I'm paraphrasing here, but not by much. I want to instruct you on how to the alt-right can get everything that they want. Like things like that.
Saying, right? What he's saying is, like, he doesn't agree with Millennial Woes. He's like, stop your ethno-nationalism. I think you have a concern about the border. You ought to argue your border concern in this way and stop being ethno-staters.
Exactly.
That's what he's saying, and he's saying it over and over and over to the point where he got frustrated and said, F it, I'm not talking to you guys
people
anymore.
Misconstrue it and now think that he's...
I mean, like, with Sargon, I think that there's a lot of mixed messages. He definitely has said things that were unambiguously anti-alt-right at times, and then he's said other things that, I mean, like laughing over Heather Hayer's death with Millennial Woes, that was pretty fucking heinous. And like people like when things like that happen, even if that is I don't know, something that he was like misled about and whatnot, he's still like, I don't know, when people see someone like Sargon, who is very revered by a great deal of people, when they see him getting along like that with someone, like, it's because I believe, I don't know, like, have you guys familiar with Destiny? Destiny?
Yes.
It talks about responsible platforming, and I believe that everyone should have like there should be no limits to who you have discussions with. But when you have discussions with, say, whatchamacallit, World War II, like denialists, not World War II denialists. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little tired here, but
Sure.
Holocaust denialism and stuff like that, that you approach it in a very kind of professional way and not in a way that's kind of like buddy. But anyway, I think I'm
but see, the problem with that is, though, Vadim, and this is where Thomas Smith really fucked up last year. He should have went on stage and talked more calmly and actually shared his ideas, and he could have actually furthered the conversation. Majid was a Majid Nawaz. He's a part of de-radicalizing certain Muslim sects. Do you think that de-radicalizing certain extremists doesn't require having conversations with them in a calm manner?
I've seen so many of like the greats. I mean, maybe not so many, but certainly Christopher Hitchens would get like very emotional. I think that this whole kind of idea that just because someone is getting just a little emotional on stage and isn't being perfectly calm and whatnot, I don't think that like subtracts from the like strength of their arguments.
Yeah, but a little emotional is absolutely fine. Emotional is fine, but when you start calling the audience deplorables and telling the organizers they should be fucking ashamed of themselves, that's that's a different level.
Or more, like a really moronic, heinous thing. So like I can see in the moment kind of just like why he would say that. And and again, like the Hitch is another guy who very commonly would be very belligerent with his audience, and and sometimes they were they weren't out of line. So it's like
Hitch would have said, "I'm not coming to Mythcon." No way, that's gross. He would have come, and maybe he would have told me I'm full of shit, or maybe he wouldn't, but he'd come.
Right, and he wouldn't call Shuan head of white nationalists.
That's damn straight, yeah.
So like
Shuan
there are tactics that work. And
I think that there are a lot of people who are critical of this event who are not calling you white supremacists, who are not calling Shuan head white supremacists. It's that they're certainly maybe like a contingent of people who are doing that, and I think that that's unproductive and shitty. But please don't act like that's the totality.
We shouldn't shame them. Here's my appeal to this group that you're talking about, right? There's no labels. I encourage you to come. That we care about your viewpoint. We care about your safety. Please do come, engage. I find people's blind spots, talk. I think everybody wants to talk. I'm concerned on whether I live in a bubble. I want to make sure that I don't.
But
I want more people that come that disagree with me that hopefully.
But one of the biggest topics you guys are focusing on is fake news, right? And yes, I agree with you, Vadim, that most people aren't saying these things. Unfortunately, they get influenced by this fake news, this slander, these untrue statements. And unfortunately, the narrative changes. And all of a sudden, last year was only Thomas and Sargon. That's all we hosted. Nothing else happened. And so that's where, you as skeptics, we have to look at all the facts. We have to look at, we have to do our own investigation. Don't get influenced by people that are just out to ruin one another. And essentially the people on the left have to try to stop ruining one another. I think that's what Dima was saying. We need to have conversations.
Right.
It does happen on the right, but I actually think that the right is almost like has the opposite problem. Like they'll support people like Roy Moore and things like that. And there's a lot of despicable behavior that they will allow their heroes to get away with that you usually don't see happen.
That's more of a loyalty, right?
Everybody's a complicated person, and every person's awesome in some way, and everyone's problematic in some way.
Yeah. When Vadim, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't direct any of that at you. This is just a lot of the same criticisms I hear, and you guys had talked about it up front, and you know, like a lot of the narrative is just BS. You know, the biggest criticism that is justified from last year is the fact that we didn't get more out of the Sargon Thomas debate, and that's why we've added moderators this year. That's why we were very strict on the conference calls, as you saw. You know, we want people to go in ready. We don't want people attacking one another on stage. It's not about that. It's about having a positive conversation, and we're really happy that you've joined on, and all the speakers are really honored to have all you guys there. And
we've upgraded the intersection.
Yeah, and you know, I have to say, like I'm really out of my comfort zone in a whole number of ways, because I've never debated before. Well, I debated like in high school for Clinton Gore, but I don't really think that counts. It's been a while. And then on top of that, you know, like I'm subjecting myself to, I know that there will be well, maybe not, but you know, I believe there could very well be a spate of people making like, you know, top 10 times that Armored Skeptic totally crushed Vadim Newquist on stage.
Well, let me just ask you this though. Hold on, Vadim. Hold on. Let me just challenge that narrative. What other panel did that happen on last year? What other top 10 did they crush last year? Like,
that was the only social justice oriented panel that you had, whereas most of them are so social justice oriented, and there's SJW craze going on that is still like in full swing.
No, it was
I mean, I guess I've already
no, it was because A, we didn't moderate it, which we take responsibility for. B, Thomas has to take responsibility in that. When you come out swinging and you come out acting like that, okay. So typically in real life, it's not. Typically in real life, people are really nice. You meet someone and say, "Oh, you know, how's the weather?" and you make small talk. People are typically nice to one another in person. The weird thing with what happened with Thomas is you don't see that. You don't see someone come in and try to kick the door down and talk to you like you're a piece of shit. You don't see that happen in real life, and it did. And that's why, you know, that got so much attention, because that is not typical. Typically, you know, you're going to come, you're going to meet Armored and Shoe and Blair and all these people.
Look, I've told you guys that I am there for, you know, a productive conversation. I'm you know, like I do want to be firm with certain things that I have to say, and you know, but at the same time, I don't, you know, I don't want to have by any means like a fight.
Exactly.
And then also another thing that I'm also resolved to do, even though that there are certain people that I don't particularly like, I'm not going to like, you know, like backstage kind of like be an ass to those people, because to me that's unprofessional. You know, I'm not going to do any of those things. But
we appreciate that.
But the one thing, you know, like when you guys are saying, I mean, we'll just see how it goes. But you guys are saying that people would do that to me only if you know, like I got out of line or something like that. But the thing is that there are people who make videos about people who put forward very like straight-laced arguments, and they still like sort of go ahead and tear them apart. So I just don't expect to not receive that treatment necessarily. I don't know. And then also, I mean, another thing is that CC has made videos about a lot of these people, so I think that they'll be a little eager to kind of like, you know, like say something about me. I don't know. I could be wrong.
I'm telling you, it's different in person.
Give a shit about it.
It's different in person. It's totally different in person. I mean, I work with people I can't fucking stand, but you know what? I show up to work and I'm nice to them, and you know, I mean, that's just the way it is. It's different in person, and I'm not saying that. Yeah, I'm not saying that's impossible. Someone's not going to make a video of your panel. I'm sure Armored will. You know, he did a highlight last year, but not in a bad way. He did a highlight, you know, like saying this is what I did, blah blah blah. But you know, all I'm saying is the Thomas Smith one was so bizarre that, you know, like, and unfortunately unfortunately, that's the only narrative that stuck because of how bizarre it was. Like Asra Nomani and Faisal had an amazing conversation about Islam and reforming Islam and anti-Islam. And, Matt Dillahunty was on that stage and he said how that was one of the best debates he was ever a part of until he got on a fucking camera and started lying about everything we said and did. But, it is what it is. Sometimes you do everything perfect and you can't control the shit. But I'm telling you, it's going to be different in person. You're going to have a good time. Everyone's going to have.
I mean, I'm looking forward to there are several friends that I know that are going to be there, and I'm very looking forward to meeting people like Theron Meyer and Chrisiosity, Mike, and some other people. There are some people who are kind of like more kind of like on the anti-SJW side that I get along with, that I'm definitely like looking forward to having like some conversations with. But I'm the kind of person who maybe it's perfectly obvious at this point. I let it all hang out. I really like kind of like speak my mind. And I'll just be honest that it's a bit of a weird situation to be in, because it's like I know people like Sargon or other people that you have there are people who perhaps if I met them at a party, if I didn't know kind of their online activities or whatnot, like I could get along with them quite well. But again, like I feel very strongly about like truth, and it's funny because the guy has recently called me a liar for that that video, that the Shira video that you got mentioned earlier. But it's like I genuinely think that there are real solid negative repercussions for the stuff that a lot of these people put out there. And so sometimes it's difficult with some of these people to kind of and again, I'm not going to be an ass to these people, but it's difficult to kind of like look at them and be like, oh, I want to go over and have a chummy conversation with this person. I mean, do you guys understand where I'm coming from?
I totally get it. Yeah, it's funny. That Dillahunty is a perfect example of someone that had a 2-hour conversation with Sargon at the Friday night event. They were very civil and they had a great conversation. But then he sat there and said how terrible we are for having them there. I mean, it's hypocrisy. In person, you're going to see people act differently, and you're going to have these conversations. These people are showing up because they want to have these conversations.
Was that before or after the
Dillahunty decided he'd gotten so much crap for attending Mythcon. He decided
social pressure,
in advance that he was going to slam us. And then when the Sargon Smith thing, that was his convenient thing. He actually told Mario before that he was going to make the video. Now, he claims to have been inspired at the time, but that not to be true.
Yeah,
I think that, and he claimed what you did was not humanism. And my point is, his vision of humanism is so narrow that I can't distinguish it from a fundamentalist religion, because it's all these things that you can't do, all these politically correct things. I mean, I think Dillahunty is just, he was
Dillahunty
he made stuff up.
Sure. I mean, Dillahunty is someone who also, when recently the Lawrence Krauss stuff occurred, he kind of made some, like, in my opinion, some weird apologetics for it. So maybe there is an argument to be made that the guy is
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah,
then Jordan Peterson.
Right. And then he goes on stage with Jordan Peterson.
So,
after he condemns that you shouldn't be
talk
talking
to Sargon
to these people that are right of center. And then he goes and
talks
to
whatever.
Douglas Murray.
We're not
right.
Who's
made
I first of all, even though that I am not a fan of Jordan Peterson, I would say that he is in a different place in many different ways than Sargon. Maybe actually, I don't know. Maybe I need to reconsider that. I need to think about that.
Like we think it's great that the Dillahunty talked to Peterson and these people, but he shames us for wanting to reach out. Like, all right, you can't do that. You can't be for conversations.
Yeah. I think, but the thing is that when he had that conversation with Jordan Peterson, that wasn't under the guise of like, we are both skeptics, we are both
of course that wasn't the guys either, right? If you listen to, like,
I think his bone of contention is that he felt like this was an event that was supposed to represent skepticism and represent secular humanism, and it was not. So with the Jordan Peterson thing, he's not entering in there kind of with the the belief like, okay, this is supposed to promote skepticism.
Okay. Maybe. I guess I just expect more.
Well,
but
but again, the hypocrisy is the hypocrisy is insane. I mean, because he literally last year
he's supposed to be a rock
was
star.
on stage during a debate arguing atheism versus reforming Islam. How is that not about skepticism and humanism?
Oh,
how is that not?
People are going to be hypocrites, like that dude.
That's hypocritical, is what I'm saying.
Who's that dude that fake cried in an interview we did with him after?
Oh
Mythcon?
God, Eli
Posnick, and then
just all coming out.
And then within a day,
there's an epic meme out there about that.
Yeah,
and
just
then,
bullshit.
And then he goes and he has an interview with Sargon like a week later.
Yeah,
I mean, just the level of hypocrisy of some of these people.
Hilarious.
Yeah, he talked to Sargon a week later, right? Yeah, for 3 hours.
But why? Okay,
people were running scared from the mob.
I'd have to like really like kind of,
and then they pulled him back.
I did listen to that conversation, and I will admit I just have to be perfectly honest. Yeah, it seemed like he was fake crying.
He was fake crying.
What?
Thank you.
Did you get a kick out of that? That interview was comedic.
Well, I mean, I thought. You see, I just thought it was unfortunate that Eli was kind of a part of that conversation. Yeah. I actually thought that
the Grand Inquisitor,
he was there to have an honest conversation, and Eli was kind of, I don't know, just drama queening it a bit. I think he
poker.
Well, unfortunately,
I think his heart was in the right place, but he just kind of like, I don't know. The dude's an actor. I think maybe he was like just kind of overdoing it.
No. What it was he was inserting himself in something that had nothing to do with him. He wasn't at the event. He wasn't in the crowd. He wasn't there. And, he inserted himself for the drama, unfortunately, in a lot of ways that Dusty Smith is. And, it's
my father.
And it's like, he
let the outrage consume him.
We even say, we knew that was going to be a contentious interview, and we took it anyway. So, you know what, guys, fine. You wanna ask us about it, and it is what it is. So, we stay by our principles with that. And
do you guys I just want to point out, I mean, I hope you guys have noticed here and there, because I think that you guys have an impression of me as being someone who's maybe not willing to point out BS from the left when it hurts.
No, I don't think so. I think that you would.
What's that?
No,
we don't think so. No.
Okay. I'm glad that you don't think that. I just, because that's one thing that I'm often kind of accused of, and I certainly I won't deny that I have I do definitely have a left-wing bias, or I am very much on the left.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do agree that it's very important to kind of keep honest and really be introspective and make sure that your side is kind of just honest. Acting honestly and
self-reflect, because you're not going to be able to control anyone's side, right? You can't control anyone else, but you can self-reflect and think, am I being persuaded by bullshit or by hearsay or hyperbole or
and that's why I don't like that whole perception is, we're all friends, so we must all think the same and we must never disagree. I mean, obviously you're with Mike and Chrisiosity, and you guys all have your own personal take on things, and and we're all friends here. We argue all the time. That's what makes us good friends.
Armored Skeptic said, hey, somebody said, I'm a conservative head of I've driven from Arkansas, and I'm head of the Republican conservative thing at my college, and he's like, well, first of all, I disagree with you. Right? And she's a big fan, but that's the thing. Even
sure. CC has Christian fans. CC has very, very conservative fans, and I am totally cool with that. of course, anyone wants to have views, but really, I'm more like I really admire those people because they have open minds, and you know, and I like, you know, I listen to a whole variety of people that I listen to a lot of the people that I am talking about, you know, people like that we've discussed, people like Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, and stuff like that. I keep an eye on the right. So anyway.
Mythcon, Vadim, you don't need to convince us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact you're obviously saying I don't want to be in a bubble, and that's everyone we want. We want to either, like, you know, I want to step out of my bubble for a little bit, or I don't want to be in one, or I just want to make sure I'm not in one.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And you know, the funny thing is too, you know, the whole atheist thing, you guys are having the conversation that was never had in the quote unquote, if you want to call it that, atheist community. After Atheism Plus, no one ever discussed it on stage. None of the other conferences ever discussed it. I mean, there was a fraction, but everyone just kind of pretended like it didn't exist, and they did their own thing and started focusing. I mean, look at the American Humanist Association conference. That has nothing to do with atheism.
Oh.
No, American Humanist
Association. It's kind of like J. Edgar Hoover wearing panties, right? They knew about it, but no one ever...
My problem is not, I just want to make it clear that my problem is not I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
Brian was laughing at his own joke.
I was laughing at my own joke.
He was dying over his own joke.
I just want to be unambiguous that, like, you know, if the event, like my problem is not with the event existing. My problem is like with the event kind of touting, if it is touting itself as some sort of meeting of skeptics, and it's like putting out the idea that, like, the people that we are celebrating here, and the people, everyone that we've invited is a skeptic, then I feel like people get a really distorted view of what skepticism is. And you can call me an elitist. You can call me an elitist for kind of like having my own idea of what skepticism is, but I do, you know, in the same way that I do like of what a scientist is.
Well, and that's the problem, is what does skeptic even mean? We're not classifying this as anything but Mythcon. It is its own thing. It's going to have certain elements of certain things. It's going to be different, you know, and
like a platypus.
You know, yeah, exactly right. You know, like, so you know, we took some elements from a VidCon, or like you said, Politicon, or like American Atheist Con, or whatever. Like we're trying to see what, and a lot of this, remember, we get info from people in the surveys every year, and that's something, again, the critics that don't show up have no idea. We get this data from the surveys that says, hey, what would you be interested in seeing? Who are you interested in seeing? So this is not like we're just you know, have a dartboard and we're throwing darts at a dartboard. Like this, there is a scientific method to a lot of what we do, and
we'd even read the surveys that people were clearly trolling us.
Correct.
We took it all in.
Correct.
We're bringing a lot of the people who were recommended last year, like
of those that said yes.
Yeah. So like,
because we can't get everyone.
Like Karen Strawn, for example, was drawn from the pool of recommendations.
Yeah.
I think, well, he's not speaking, but like Jeff Holiday.
Jeff's there.
Is coming as a special guest.
Yeah, he's there,
and he was on a lot of our like a lot of the
So again, it's just like how you do your videos, how you put out little surveys that say, hey, what do you want to hear? That's how you figure it out. And like I said, your channel's wildly shifted based on what the audience wants to hear, and that's just the entertainment business in general.
And Vadim, you've actually helped us make connections outside of our normal,
which we really
you
appreciate.
Definitely don't need to convince us that you are like not. We don't think you're ideological, that you're stuck in a box. Like you're doing to
that's good. I wish, and I don't think I can convince you of this, and that's fine. You know, you guys are entitled to your own opinions, but I wish that you guys had a different outlook on your critics. Certainly, there are critics who I'm sure who are outlandish and will say things that are undeserved. Yet, I do think that there are. That there are people who don't want to show up, who I would never say, like, you know, show up or shut the fuck up to, you know, like would you say that to ContraPoints? Would you say that to
ContraPoints is
opinion,
first of all, it's
not
my
MM's
opinion, and second of all, ContraPoints is not trolling every post that we make, everything that we do, anything we say about anyone. She's not doing that, so I have no issues with it.
ContraPoints was incredibly respectful.
Correct.
She sent
so was Cat Black.
Cat Black,
yeah,
Cat Black
extremely
is a perfect example.
professional.
It was like
right.
So again, you know, I'm not talking about people that just I'm talking about the people that constantly harass us. That are
I thought you were literally talking about like everyone who gave you a no.
No. I'm talking about the people that harass us. The people
that's
literally have no lives on Twitter.
If someone wants
to sit at home and harass us,
come to Mythcon and say, you know what,
I didn't like it. Great.
And they want to argue the point and how it ought to be different. I will listen.
They're customer.
Corner me and
they're a customer.
And absolutely, I am obliged to listen. So you can throw the sink at me.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're saying. It's you know, like and people have the right to go and make their own conference. They have all these grand ideas on how what's going to be the best thing. Go remember do it. Well, okay.
But if you're paying customers for Mythcon, you actually now you're a customer and I need to listen.
Well,
so actually, if you do want to shape Mythcon, come
funny,
right? But no,
exactly
right.
Exactly
and certainly your voice is heard more loudly than if you haven't.
Correct.
Well, guys, we can continue talking for maybe like another 15 minutes or so.
Dude,
I feel like we should probably like
the longest podcast we've ever had.
Right? It has felt a little like we've discussed a lot of topics. I'm really like this has actually been a pretty good prep, even though that like I've been super tired and I don't really feel like conversationally I'm at my best today. This has actually been, I think, a good prep for Mythcon because I'm not sure. I kind of anticipate that on certain topics, the three people that I'm going to be talking to are going to be somewhat opposed to some of the things that I have to say. So having like a 3-on-1 conversation like this, it's good. It's good preparation for that for sure. Hopefully I'll be like a little more well rested for that.
No, man. This was a lot of fun. We typically go this long. I never get in on it if I'm not on the show. So this is another first.
Felt passionate about this.
I did, but like this again. What we're trying to do is inspire people to have conversations. We're trying to inspire other events to kind of think along the same lines. Unfortunately, dude, with the atheist model, if it doesn't change, it's going away. And really, the biggest need for the atheist model is in Kenya. It's in Saudi Arabia. It's in Iraq. It's in the areas that really.
Well. I have two things to say to that. First of all, certainly atheism, I think, is important, but I think it's just like one arm of skepticism. That's the way that I look at it.
Yeah.
And I kind of look at the world. There's just this huge bullshit monster, and religion is one of its biggest tentacles that that we kind of have to overcome. But I actually do. You guys are certainly correct that atheism and just secularism is needed in those regions. But I really think that people are underestimating the amount that we need people to be, again, skeptical and also just not put up with evangelical fundamentalist bullshit, which we are by virtue of the, or not by virtue, through the the Trump administration right now. I mean, the Trump administration is pandering to these people like fucking never. Like it's way worse than under George Bush, and and they're making more gains as well, and I just it's really it's sad to me because when I sort of found skepticism / atheism and whatnot, there were so many people who were concerned with these things and were speaking out on them, and now it's just like crickets. There are some people, but and I just feel like these are really important issues that people are ignoring. And
Well, but I understand your concern, Vadim, and I agree. I agree that there are new tactics being used, and the reason I bring up atheism is I'm with you. I've been trying to challenge this community for a very long time, because here's the thing: the God debate, does God exist? That's dead. No one cares about that anymore. Nobody. So you have to come
this environment
in this environment, correct? So you have to come up with new ways to normalize atheism, secularism, free thought, all that stuff. You have to come up with new ways to do it and think outside the box. And that's what the atheist, whatever you want to call it, community needs to do. They need to start engaging with different people. They need to start engaging with different audiences, because that's the way you continue to help anything thrive. Is
well,
you know.
I think you bring up a good point. I think that there's you know, that certainly is something that we all have to like kind of strive to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that there's just you know, I think one reason why a lot of people are kind of really kind of skeptical of maybe that's not the best word to use, but critical of this year is the fact that there are so many social justice oriented you know, panels, and a lot of these people see the whole social justice, anti-social justice craze as being a distraction from bigger issues, and like they, so you know, I think
I totally get that, but my answer to those critics is, unfortunately, that's where the conversation's shifting. These things always shift. Everything shifts in conversations, and
it's been there for like years now.
But look at it like this, though, Vadim. Look at it like this. This is where you got to take the positive and say, look, 90% of the speakers on stage are atheists. 90% of the special guests are atheists. When would you ever have fathomed that in the 80s? You know, the most of our speakers are not only atheists, but have come out and supported it. So
people are still pointing at
Roman. That's nice.
There's one religious person. It's like, shut the fuck up. That's a religious person that is supporting climate change and a whole bunch of other scientific.
I'm pretty sure she's separation
and again, so all I'm saying is that it's like, yes, no, we're not on stage saying God is dead, but we are doing different things in different ways, and you need that.
I mean, like honestly, I'm someone who believes that there is sort of like a net effect of like this over, you know, kind of emphasis on this topic, and you know, I think that like it really drives a lot of people to the right, because you know, like there are a lot of people who voted for Trump just to own the libs, because they had this sort of idea that Hillary Clinton was like synonymous with like the craziest SJWs out there. Yeah. So
but that's going to open a whole nother thing.
Here's a point. At Mythcon, it'll be interesting, because 10% Christian was there. The God debate became fun again. The God debate is a lot more fun with people who don't agree.
Yeah.
Right. And these conversations are more fun when, you know, we're talking to you, Vadim, like where we disagree on
Unfortunately, what the atheist conferences have turned into is preaching to the choir.
Right. Exactly. You know? So I'm telling you, come to Mythcon, and you know what? If you want to just talk about the God debate all the time, find the believers, and they'll be happy to talk to you. Because I had some really good and fun conversations like that at Mythcon last year.
Absolutely. So, Vadim, we really should go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks for having me. I you know, it was a fun talk. And
have us on your channel. We'll do it again. We'll do another 3-hour marathon.
Yeah. But maybe my human channel. I'm gonna
your human channel. Yeah.
Milwaukee's an amazing city. For those that haven't been, that's a real big draw.
Yeah, I've never been to Milwaukee. I'm looking forward to that, to checking out Milwaukee itself.
You're in for a treat, man. This is the crown jewel of the Midwest.
Hey, isn't the Fonz from Milwaukee? Isn't that?
There's a bronze
Fonz statue
that's like a block away from the venue. So
really, all people
awesome.
All these pee on it really, and then take pictures with it.
No one
Like
pees
the homeless
on it.
people pee, they do. You
That's a
smell the thing.
conspiracy
I'm
theory.
telling you, when you go there, smell it.
Jesus
Go
Christ.
see that.
Smell the Fonz statue. Is that what you're asking me to do?
He was a dog in his former
I'm
life.
telling
Holy
you,
shit.
man, like it's a public property. That's what happens.
Okay. Well, I wasn't expecting this conversation. Like it just. I mean, I wish we could have talked about you know, some other things as well. Like, you know, just I don't know, comedy and stuff like that. Things that are you know, different than politics. But it's still like, you know, it was a pretty stimulating conversation. I hope you guys. I hope I didn't interrupt you guys too much. It's just it's a bit when you have three people on one, it's a bit hard for not to do that.
We didn't mean to pile on, man. But yeah, have us on your channel. We'd love
It's
to
a
talk
battle
about
royale.
it. And yeah, I don't agree with these guys all the time either. So don't worry about any of that.
Almost never.
Yeah,
That's
pretty much never.
It'll be fun.
All right.
Yeah. So, Vadim, thank you again for joining us.
Yeah.
And we'll see you soon, dude. And everyone else, thanks for listening. This has been a marathon. So hopefully.
Yeah. If anyone is still listening, first of all, what do you have a job? But no, that's mean for me to say. But thank you. If you're still listening, if you then amazing. You just it's like a equivalent of a fucking marathon.
Yeah, we loved it. Thanks, guys. Signing off.
All right. Take care.
Later.